Ogden, and then we'll leave it there. So, Kevin, you're got a race.
I got a race. Right. Kevin Burns, North Ogden. I was going to show up tonight and be really angry and tell you how much we don't want the high density housing in our area, which we don't. We don't want townhomes. We understand there's going to be homes. But then you guys got sneaky and you put Family Promise up to talk about their great story and how awesome you are for taking care of them. And I wanted to thank you before it got rowdy for taking care of that population. That was very moving and very touching that you could do that. So I'm going to try to stay away from being emotional as well. I also spent some time working with that population, and I understand that it's really hard to make that progress. So thank you very much for that. That was very moving. Please don't bring us any townhomes to our neighborhood. The answer for the housing crisis in the United States is not in North Ogden, Utah. It's spread around. We have plenty of townhomes to look at and worry about. Single family homes, some entry level homes, awesome. We just don't want to see the townhomes. That's my opinion. So, thank you.
Well, I can say something about.
And real quick, sorry, before rules of decorum, we don't really want clapping or applause in between comments. We mentioned this last week. I'm sorry to do that. Just we're trying to keep it civil and cordial. So we do understand when everyone agrees, though.
Doug Anderson, North Ogden. I too, my wife and I have spent more than one night in the old fire station with Family Promise. I know what she's talking about. And yes, my hat's off to you in more ways than one. I'm not going to repeat what you mentioned, Mayor Barker, even though I agree. But I would like to say maybe three things. First off, whether we do or don't have townhouses as described, and yes, I did look at the agenda. I opened up the link. I read through all the comments, the progress that was made from where it shows 9 townhouses to 4, I believe, in the current proposal, etc. And I thought, you folks did a lot of work. So my compliments to you. But the cost of housing, there is the good old cause and effect of the law of supply and demand, okay, which controls the cost of housing. It eventually does. And I, for one, who have lived here for 46 years, would be sad to see a townhome such as is described on our side of the boulevard. I know they're already on the other side, and I understand the why and the pressure that you're under to balance the demands from the state with everything, and I don't envy your position. So having read the material that was available, I think I understand a little better. I was going to come here upset, but I'm not upset. I am concerned though, and if this proposal goes through as is, to me it's kind of like the story of the camel getting his nose in the tent. You know what I'm talking about? You get one townhome, then, oh, we just had one, we can have more. So camel, nose in tent is how I see this decision. And my last comment is I appreciate every single one of you. I voted for every one of you, except for you, John Call. But I did. My wife and I voted for every single one of you because I believe that you have your heads on straight and you can make good decisions. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, my name is Brian Bartholomew. Just like last week, I'm still a 40-year resident of North Ogden. I apologize for being back, but here I am. Not only am I a 40-year resident of North Ogden, I'm on the board of directors for Mountain View Irrigation, which is a secondary water company up here. And I want to make some comments about the Jordan Park secondary water. I am also a neighbor to Jordan Park. My property borders that development, and I have one of their lots under contract to buy. So I'm fairly invested in this issue. I've been involved with meetings for the last 2.5 years. We've discussed the Jordan Park subdivision countless times. These meetings involve North Ogden City. They involve other developers. They involve Mountain View. They involve Pine View. So again, I'm somewhat knowledgeable. And after my comments last week, Barry and I had a phone call. And the last thing he basically said to me was, given the frustrations that he's having with the water issue, he said, I'm going to propose to North Ogden City Council that we don't do secondary water, meaning Jordan Park doesn't do secondary water, doesn't do secondary water systems. There won't be yards, there won't be trees, there won't be shrubs. We're just going to do rock. And he says, Brian, will you come to City Council and support me in this? And I said, Barry, I will come to City Council. I will sit next to you, but sorry, I'm across the aisle. I said, but I will stand up and I will oppose you. And he said, why would you do that? And I says, well, the secondary water issue you've got is your issue to resolve. It's not our issue as neighbors. It's not our issue as citizens. It's not your issue as a city to resolve this. It's his issue to resolve. Plus, as a neighbor, I don't really want to look out my windows and see houses that don't have yards, don't have trees and shrubs, and don't have those normal landscaping requirements fulfilled. And I'm not going to go too much more to that because I said a lot last week. I do want to point out, though, with his presentation, and these are discussions that Barry and I have had and over the course of the years. On one of his issues, he's going to mention the will serve letter that was provided to Jordan Park from 2019 from Mountain View Irrigation. These are common, but will serve letters are vague and they have conditions. And that will serve letter, the conditions have not been fulfilled by Hamlet for that will serve letter. So we at Mountain View are still waiting for him to provide the water shares so then we can provide water to that subdivision. The other thing I want to mention is he's going to talk about how they're working at, a really fast pace to get this done, pursuing all options in parallel at maximum possible speed. And I think that's part of the problem. I think Hamlet has not done their due diligence from the beginning, which is why we are here today. I looked at buying that property years ago. I knew there was no water on it. I did my due diligence and I chose to walk away and not buy it. I think if Hamlet and Rick Skadden, for that matter, would have done their due diligence and would have been more honest with each other, I don't think we, meaning citizens, neighbors, and the city council would be in this position. But so again, my position as a North Ogden citizen, as a neighbor, is you, the council, need to hold Jordan Park subdivision to the same standards as everybody else. They need to have secondary water figured out. If it's going to take them years to figure it out, that's fine. Those years should have been done, in my opinion, prior to development. But regardless, those years of due diligence still need to be done. So, hold them to that same standard as the rest of us, and appreciate what all you guys do. Thanks.
Before I left, my wife said, now be good. Well, I'll try.
Tell us your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul Merrill. I live on 2100, right by 6. So I'm right in the neighborhood. I've only been a resident 5 years. I'll be 90 years old in a couple of weeks. My doctor says, don't get too excited. I have a 30-minute rule with my family. If they come in and find me flat on the floor, they have to wait 30 minutes before they dial 911. And I respect your courage for being on the city council. I'm not sure about your intellect, but I'm glad you have the courage to be there. I first saw this new plan Sunday night. I was livid. I didn't get to sleep till 4 o'clock. And I thought back of the meetings that I've been to, the hundreds of people that have come and stated their feelings about townhouses and apartments and all this other stuff. And I had hoped the message would have gotten through, but evidently it hasn't. I started working in construction 72 years ago. I built everything from outhouses to 12-story office buildings, many shopping centers, also million-dollar homes. And my latest project was 80 starter homes in Woods Cross. I made $2,000 on each house. They were starter homes for young families. It can be done. And then in 2000, I went on 9 missions for the church. I've done construction in California, Idaho, Colorado, Nebraska, and Utah. So I've been around. I've been in a lot of planning and zoning. I was 12 years as a project manager for Safeway, and I was in a lot of meetings with city council, and it's been a very good experience. This is the first time I have ever seen townhomes or apartments proposed in a residential area. It's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Plus narrow streets and the homeowners being responsible for removal and maintenance, or snow removal and maintenance. That's nuts. If you do that, those people will be down here pounding on this pulpit, wanting you, the city, to clean our roads and take care of the maintenance. I don't think that's a very practical or smart way to go. The last planning and zoning meeting I went to, they closed up the public comments, and then the planning and zoning spent the time talking about percentages and also talking about, if I heard right, that we would get $1 million from Governor Cox. I call it blackmail, if we would do low income and high in density housing. Well, you can bend over and kiss Cox's feet, and you might get the $1 million. I don't know. I don't know we're that desperate for it. My big concern is I'm on the second house from 6, and every time we get a little bit of rain, I get flooded. How many of you have curb and gutter in your houses? Show of hands. How many of you have curb and gutter? Do you all have curb and gutters? Well, I don't. My house is 106 years old, and I don't have curb and gutter. And every time we get a little bit of rain, this last little rain we had a couple of weeks ago, 25 homes had flood damage in my ward and stake. 25 homes. I think it is irresponsible to do anything of these projects unless you take care of something on 2100 to do something about that water. They have a canal that comes down 6th and 21st, and they meet together there at 6, and that takes very little water to overflood, and it goes into my neighbor's yard and into my yard, and then the other 8 houses down the street. When we had, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, when we had all that, every house had water flooded around them. They need to get that curb and gutter or something to do with the flood waters before they do anything on these projects. And nothing has been addressed. No one's ever said anything about doing anything about floodwater. In these meetings I've been to, there's not been one comment other than comments that I made about what to do. And I think it's the city's responsibility to do that before you go ahead with these projects. What are you going to do with all that water? Just let it keep flooding us? My last comment. We have been trying months to get this resolved and get the message across. No apartments, no townhouses. It's single family houses only. I would like to, this is probably wrong. I would like to know how much money Mr. Matlock is trying to make on the project. Like I said, when I built this 80 homes in Woods Cross, I made $2,000 a house, but that was all right. When my parents died and they settled their estate, you know what I got? $2. It's not the responsibilities of Mr. Matlock, and I don't know, I'm just assuming something, that he probably wants some money that he can pass on to his kids and his family, and that's nice. But I don't want them messing up the neighborhood with townhomes and everything else in order to for him to make money. If you can't afford it, keep growing alfalfa. That's fine. Thank you.
Bill Swanson, North Ogden resident. Just a quick comment on the discussions 6 and 7, I think it is, about the secondary culinary use for secondary purposes of water. I gave to the mayor, and he's passing down to you, each of you, a copy of the will serve letter that was given to the developer back in, it's dated November 14th, 2019. And in it, it says that prior to the property being approved for development, the owner or developer will be required to complete a development agreement with the company. I don't believe that development agreement yet exists, which will include providing the applicable water share sufficient to provide water to the project. I know that hasn't been done, that the share. So these conditions that are in the will serve letter have yet to be met. And if they were met, then the use of culinary water for secondary purposes would be off the table and wouldn't need to be discussed. So as was mentioned by another resident a little bit earlier who's on the Mountain View Irrigation Board, this is a self-imposed wound that the individual, the developer, needs to take care of. As I mentioned in our last meeting, our culinary water system is unique in that we provide it ourselves. We don't get it through another water provider. And it is a limited, finite resource. We have had several well attempts over the last several years, well over the last 10 years, that we were not able to prepare to be used in the future because there wasn't sufficient water. The last thing we need to do is start opening the gate to more developers using culinary water for secondary purposes. Again, I encourage you to take a look at this will serve letter and hopefully realize that, again, this is a self-inflicted wound and the developer needs to take care of the commitments they made back in 2019 before coming to the city. And if they'll do that, then the city doesn't need to provide culinary water for secondary purposes. Thank you. And thanks for your service.
Good evening. I'll make it brief. Chris Remkus, North Ogden resident, 657 East, 2100 North. In the many planning commission meetings I've sat in and talked through, there's been discussion about this general plan, right? And it seems to be that the general plan is being dismissed, in my opinion. I don't want to villainize the developer applicant. I'm a builder myself. We build all over the state of Utah. It's going to happen. It's got to happen. But please don't misrepresent passionate citizens who are passionate about keeping the North Ogden culture in our neighborhood based upon a general plan that was developed in 2015 with a steering committee, public input, and drafted and broadcast on your website, North Ogden City's website. And now it seems that we're moving past that. I don't see anywhere in Southtown across the street from my house where it shows high density housing being built. So I would just like you guys to please consider that we are passionate about keeping our neighborhood the way it was intended, the way we voted on, the way we planned on in 2015, and help us understand why the pendulum has swung and why it changes now. That's what I'd like to understand. Please give us the same considerations as our other neighbors to the north. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd also like to just quickly mention the Promise House. And I've also had the opportunity to serve there on a couple of occasions and compliment the city, being able to work with that organization to provide that great service. And I'm glad to have been a part of it. I would like to address the Matlock property question and the zoning requirement that's before the council tonight. First, I'd like to compliment the developer on their efforts to try and incorporate some of the public comments that have taken place. But I think there's an elephant in the room that nobody's addressed yet. And let me explain. The discussion, excuse me, the discussion before the council tonight is a rezoning from RE20 to R1 5, R4, and R18, I believe. That is what the applicant applied for. But what has been presented by the applicant, by my reading of the code and my reading of the requirements for that zoning requirement, would not be allowed to be built under that zoning. The applicant has asked for some variations, has asked for narrower streets, private roads, which would require a PUD, or at least variances. And in their application, they have not asked for any of that. I'm not opposed to rezoning. In fact, I think the rezoning recommendation is a good one, other than the R4, which I've been very vocal about, and most of my neighbors have been very vocal about. But if the council wants to approve that zoning, I'm fine with that, especially if they remove the R4. But then what happens after that? When does a developer come back and say, oh, by the way, I really want to put in a PUD. I really want to put in all of these things that are variances to the zoning that you have now approved. I've referred to this in the past as code creep. We talk about doing one thing, and then we slowly keep moving the goalpost to satisfy a particular developer, and we get so far down the road that we can't back ourselves out. Not only that, but this discussion extends far beyond just that property. We start at 600, we move up the hill through the, I can't remember the names on the other property, but up the hill towards the Barker property, there's already development started at the top of the hill that's an R12. And according to the general plan, we should be moving from an R15, moving up the hill to that higher zoning. And that makes sense. But if we allow a PUD with private roads, narrow streets, and you've already heard all the arguments why those should not be allowed, why they don't fit into the neighborhood, why they don't match the surrounding neighborhoods. And so that should be considered. An R15, an R8 with standard streets, standard neighborhood is appropriate for that piece of property. And then moving up the hill to the R12 for those other areas, I think is also appropriate. We're not opposed to development. We want to work with developers, but we want to keep the nature of our neighborhoods. And putting in a development like is presented does not match the surrounding neighborhoods. The zoning does, but what is being presented does not. So I think the council needs to very carefully consider, what are they approving tonight? Are they approving a zoning application? Or are they approving a PUD with a higher density? And we already talked about the argument of the affordability issue. And I've been doing quite a bit of research, and I don't want to get into all the details, but it's my opinion, and I talked to council last week about this, that this type of a development will not provide housing that fits in to what's defined as affordable housing. It does, however.
Your 5 minutes are.
Okay, last thought. It does, however, satisfy the requirements for the city's affordable housing plan, in my opinion. Thank you.
Hi, Kate Priebison, North Ogden resident. So beautiful to see so many people who care about where we live. I agree with you a lot of the things that were spoke about tonight. I would like to address the Matlock property. And the first thing I would like to echo on the points previously just made on the height limitations. I don't understand the city's height limitations well enough to interpret the proposal building heights. But I want to remind you that no variances of any kind, height or otherwise, can be issued for this parcel because there is no property hardship. One of the neighbors explained this whole variance problem in the Atkinson Planning Commission meeting. So I ask you, the city council, to remind the developers that variances would not be legal in the zones that they're asking. Ask the city staff tonight whether any variance or other deviations from city standards are likely to be needed for this project. Ask city staff to make sure that the neighborhoods know about any variance requests that might come up. And then the other thing I want to talk about is just the affordable housing. The developer talks as if the only way to provide more affordable housing is to put in high-density houses into little parcels surrounded by established neighborhoods. But that is not the case. The Utah state legislature is working on various ways to enable more affordable housing while still protecting established neighborhoods. Perhaps the most important ones are: remove impediments to regional infrastructure to unlock new and already approved housing developments, establish direct state financial mechanisms to support funding of infrastructure, especially water systems, sewer systems, and major roads. These two actions alone would allow for 109,000 fully zoned houses to go forward without sacrificing any more established residential neighborhoods. I hope the city leaders and citizens will write to the state legislature and support these solutions that do not cause such problems for existing neighborhoods. Again, please consider and reject this proposal. Thanks.
So my name is Rod Southwick, and I'm just here, close. I've been in North Ogden for 55 years and love our place, and we're losing a lot of the green space with this, and that's, I think, taking away from the beauty of the city. Some things that I don't know if they're under our control or the developer, but we've had 2 deaths in the last 15 years at 2300 and Washington Boulevard. There's no right semaphore there. And there are, I don't know if we have anybody related to the police officers, but there's quite a few accidents. So to bring another 150, 170 cars to go down 2200 or 2250 or 2300 north to get onto Washington Boulevard out of the project is opening a real problem. Most of us that are I'm in the HOA there, Legacy, and just a comment there. The homes are 14 feet apart, but planting of trees that I kind of know a little bit about, and et cetera. It'd be nice if he would take a look at those. I mean, at 14 feet and putting homes with the tree between the two and out front really softens that. So I don't know if they're take a look at the legacy project to have the frontage of homes that I mean, hopefully they don't get kind of wild with the architectural or the way they put it. So the concerned about the increased traffic that goes down there. The other one is, do the homes on 600 face the mountain, or where are the driveways and the entry to their homes? So the backyards, or is it the front yards of those 15 homes that are going to be along that? Anybody know how he's proposed those? Or do they have to enter the project and then go down the road so that they go there? The reason for bringing this up, it would be nice to put a fence the entire to the backyards if they face east, to put on the west that fence so that people going down 600 walking. There's a lot of dogs and people and carts and everything that walk down that. And to be able to look at a fence as opposed to all the junk that people are going to put in their backyards and trampolines and other things like that, it would be nice to have that covered. The problem, how did we get the problem that we have behind west of the car wash? The size of the driveways, if you've got a pickup truck that's extra long, it hangs out over. They go to the front of the garage door, and that homes it goes to the back, and nobody can get down the sidewalk. And when you say, yeah, we'll make it double wide, well, the depth of it needs to be considered, and how many homes are going to be in those townhome? How many people? How many cars? You can say, well, we have one car per home, but there's never, it's a rare time when you just have one car in these homes, so there'll be two cars. So traffic for not killing people on 2300 and Washington, and not having to park on the street all the time, get the depth of the 20 feet away from the home. So those are just some of the comments that I've noticed as we have it. And I think, yeah, I've addressed the concerns that I would say they ought to have some consideration for. So thank you. Okay, there's your seat.
Hey, Reed Miller, and I'm from North Ogden. Hey, I'm a constitutionalist, and one of the things that we stand for is life, liberty, and property. Property is so essential to freedom, so essential. And there is, if you see the big picture, an organization called the World Economic Forum. And they're made of communists and atheists, and they want to control the world and influence as many countries as they can, and especially the United States. And their influence has perpetrated right here in the United States and in the state of Utah as well. Low-income housing is not really low-income housing. High-density housing takes away a person's opportunity to control property and develop their what do you call it, their land, and to have land. These World Economic Forum wants to take away a person's property and still make them happy. Now, if we go along with this, of which Governor Cox is really wants to make every single city go according to these, guidelines of make sure you have low income housing, high density. That's not the constitutional way. It really isn't. And so, hey, if we go along with that, it won't be good. I used to live in North Legacy. The streets were narrow, and it was deemed private property, yet road we could go in and out of there. And you know what? We had an HOA. The homeowners thing made it so that we had to follow things that were against our Constitution, my rights. And then the roads were so narrow that they developed a code for the city that the plows couldn't even come down and plow. And yet I was a citizen paying, property tax and everything, yet I didn't have, the services. And so when I look at this situation, all it is a situation that in the big run will take away a person's basic property rights, and it will not be good actually for the city. Thank you.
Deanne Burns, North Ogden. I made sure and dressed up in my Eskimo suit because it's so cold in here tonight. So don't believe everything you read in the staff report. The developer and the city staff both made unsupported claims that are simply not credible. These biased arguments make the project seem all rosy when it is not. The materials sent to you are riddled with these problems. Don't be swayed by this kind of gauzy misdirection. I will give you 2 examples of unstraight shooting from the city staff and one from the developer. On page 2 of the agenda packet, city staff say, mixed-use zoning promotes maintaining open space in the area. We all know that's not true. Why is the city staff saying things like that? 2, the attached draft ordinance mentions the general plan, but completely glosses over the conflict with the general plan. The city staff should be highlighting this problem for you rather than sweeping it under the rug. On page 11 of your packet, the developer talks as if he has bent over backwards to address the neighbors' concerns. The truth is that as far that he has not lifted a finger to ever talk to any of the neighborhood. As far as I have been able to learn, he's never talked to even a single neighbor, and he has not made significant changes. At first blush, the left table shows major changes by comparing his second plan to the original plan. But this so-called original plan never existed. If you read the table carefully, you realize that he's comparing his own plan with a completely different developer's plan. Completely different project on a completely different piece of land. All these wonderful changes he claims are imaginary. That's not shooting straight. And I just wanted to remind you that you represent the citizens of North Ogden. We're asking you to do the right thing for us and put yourselves in our shoes. If this was your home and this development was going in by you, what would your feelings be? I want to tell you about an incident that happened 3 weeks ago. And I have pictures, but I won't share those. I was out to lunch with my elderly mother at Javier's at Harrisville Junction. There were 3 gentlemen in a booth behind us. It was early, so there wasn't hardly anyone in the restaurant, when a developer broke out plats and proceeded to present them to the other 2 gentlemen. And he said, "Look at this. You will never have to work a day in your life if you do this development." He proceeded to tell them that they needed to have it rezoned with city council and how they can work it. I heard this with my own ears and I was disgusted. Don't let these developers tell you that it is to better our community. Some of them don't even live in our community. It is to line their pockets and never have to work another day in their life. And I heard that statement. I ask you to have your own thoughts and vote based on your own conscience, not on a previous discussion that you may have had. Vote on your own feelings and not someone else's. Please remember who your constituents are and how you got in your seats.
Thank you. My name's Eric Strafford. I live in North Ogden, up in the Cove area. Thank you for your service, first and foremost. Just wanted to back up a couple of comments from the Jordan Park subdivision that were stated earlier, and just point you to the North Ogden City Code that requires secondary water to be both in Section 11, 26.8, as well in Section 9, that secondary water is a stipulation of for an applicant. It's a condition of approval for them to have secondary water. And the only way that that can be arranged otherwise is if there isn't secondary water available in our code. So just wanted to point towards that to back up the two other statements. Thank you.
Chris Olson, resident of North Ogden City. I wanted to share quickly just two perspectives. One from me as a citizen. I live in the Cove, built a home 2 years ago, also built a home 10 years ago in North Ogden. Both times had to write a pretty good check for secondary water. So in reference to the Jordan Park subdivision, both those homes had to get secondary water. We couldn't do anything about it. We wrote that big check and we got secondary water, put beautiful yards in, worked great. Second perspective is Chris from CF Olson Homes. I've got 3 homes in the Cove right now. I have to charge my homeowners for that large amount. They have to get secondary water. That has to be paid before anything can be started on the home. Meaning never in the last 15 years have I had an issue where I could call in and say, "God, okay, we couldn't get secondary water. Can we start, going on this house? Can we build this house all the way to almost a finish? And maybe we'll get a check or get the receipt to you." Absolutely not. That is required at permits every single time. The 3 homes I have in the Cove right now are that. So just like to refer those. Thank you.
John Arrington, resident of North Ogden. I don't know why I'm really here because basically I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm here to talk about procedure. It says on your information here that Scott Hess will make a presentation. I think a presentation would have gone a long way, at least from somebody here that doesn't know anything about it. But my other issue is that he could explain that this has gone through the planning commission, I assume. Is that right? And so I think that their discussion about you haven't considered all these things has been considered. But seriously, I think it would have been helpful to me if Scott would have done a presentation so that we understand how we got to this position. The only other thing I have to mention is that people are talking about property rights. Well, somebody owns this property and it's their property right to try and develop it. And so I think that needs to be considered. But that's where the guidelines of what the planning commission and what you decide can be done with this property. And then the person with property rights can pursue it in that. Thank you.
John, can we put the pictures on the slide? I have more pictures for you. I'll be that picture lady. Can you go to the blank one first? Okay, perfect.
It's Mindy, right? You tell us your name?
Yes, Mindy Albee, North Ogden. It's the first part of my speech. Okay, Mindy Albee, North Ogden. This developer has made a big point of calling his project affordable or workforce housing. He says that a shortage of housing affordable to young couples, early career buyers, or workforce and first-time buyers justifies putting high-density housing in the middle of North Ogden's established low-density neighborhood. I will show that this is not true. The zoning request should be denied. What I say here also applies to the Atkinson proposal. First, oh, you're moving without me. Sorry, pause the time. Can you go back to slide number 3? Okay, great, right there, okay. No, go to the one that, oh no, maybe my numbers are off. Sorry, can you go to the next one?
There's 2 blank slides.
It's okay. Keep going till it says the welcome mat. Oh man, guys, this was gonna be so organized. No, keep going. Go backwards, go backwards. Oh no, okay, just keep it, but that's the one. That's the one. Sorry. Okay. Okay, the welcome mat is out for affordable housing in North Ogden. Next. North Ogden has a general plan. The citizen said, look, we're going to get ahead of zoning disputes and make a plan. We are going to officially publish this map so that everybody knows where the patio homes, where the apartments, and where everything else is going to go. And so that nobody has to worry. We have a lot of worried citizens here. And nobody gets their hopes up about what can go on the land. But first, here's the map's legend. Next. Look at the yellow. That means lots 8,000 square feet and larger. Green is parks, blue is civic space. Everything else is high density land for projects like this Matlock project. Next. Now for the map. Again, yellow is low density housing, green and blue are parks and civic space. Everything else on that map is open. If Matlock builds there, he will get the citizens' full support, and which he should, because it would be unfair to pull the rug out from under him. Just like it would be unfair to the neighbors for him to put his project in the yellow area. So where does this Matlock proposal decide to go? Next slide. He decides to put it right in the middle of the yellow, where the general plan only allows low density residential. Next slide. Is there any argument for the Matlock project where it does comply? Good question. No, there is not. Next slide. R4 zoning is the most dense zoning category that even exists in North Ogden. The most dense. Next slide. These words come straight from the city's general plan. I wish we had more time to read them carefully. This is copied from page 18 of the general plan text. Low density residential, 8,000 square feet and larger. Medium density, and it gets more dense as you go through. If you approve this project, more projects like it will come. Next slide. None of these rules snuck up on the developer or the property owner. These rules have been in place for many years. Weber County also has a general plan. I don't have time to show it here, but it shows even more locations for high density housing. It shows very low density houses in the spot where that Matlock parcel is. Next slide. So Matlock claims affordable housing benefits. Are they worth sacrificing decades of wise planning and established neighborhoods for, well, as it turns out, next slide. The Matlock developer does not plan to build any attainable homes because he can't for 2 fundamental and basic reasons. Next slide. First, he chose the most expensive piece of land in the whole city to build on. Next slide. Second, he chose a house product that simply cannot be built at an affordable price point. I know what affordable housing looks like. My first house that my husband and I bought when we were married 15 years ago was a tiny 948 square foot 2-bedroom condo, the classic starter home. Later, we moved up to a 1,400 square foot house. And after a decade of scrimping and saving, we finally could afford our current home in Fernwood Estates. The following is what affordable housing looks like. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, sorry, too far. Sorry, I'm really bad at driving this. Okay. Without these features, Matlock's houses will unavoidably be priced way above the price that an early career and workforce buyer can pay. And by building on such expensive land, Matlock's sale prices will have to include the cost of the following amenities that these first-time owners cannot afford to buy. Next slide. These are the things that are not included in starter homes. These are not starter home amenities. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So the Matlock houses will not provide affordable housing benefits. The entire plan is 1, clearly inconsistent with the general plan. 2, out of step with the neighborhoods. 3, bad planning for all the reasons that you have heard so far from these neighbors. For all these reasons, I respectfully ask that you turn down this case. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gary Hawkser. I'm a resident of the Cove, and I want to thank you for your service, the members of the City Council and the Mayor. I wanted to take just a minute briefly and voice my opposition to the proposal by Jordan Park Homes. As I understand it, they want to build 137 homes in there and not have any trees or shrubs or grass. Most of us, I would bet each of you have a beautiful home, a beautiful yard. We have pride in our homes, in our yards, in our property. I love North Ogden. I've lived here since 1979. And it concerns me when we have a developer come in, very short-sighted, in my opinion, to not have a plan for secondary water when you're going to build 137 homes with no plans for secondary water, with the idea that he would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And I just think it's very short-sighted on his part to make that our problem. It's not our problem, it's his problem. And it's my hope that you will not approve his proposal. I guess the biggest concern I have too is this sets a precedent, doesn't it? If we let him do this, if you let him do this, you open the door for every other developer to do the same darn thing. You know, as we go forward, our water is probably going to become more and more of a scarce commodity, and it opens the door for this to happen in the future. And what's a beautiful area now is going to look like the surface of the moon in a lot of areas if we allow him to do this. So thank you. I appreciate your listening to me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bott. I've been a resident of North Ogden for about 40 years. First, I want to thank you guys for all the hard work you've done. We appreciate it. My concern too is over the property that is considered to be developed. Why would you take a beautiful piece of property and convert it into something that looks like a whole lot of townhomes or row houses in another area? That property deserves something better than a little teeny house with a lot of asphalt and high density housings. There's one reason the developer does want to do that, and it's easy for you to look up. The developer gets a significant tax break on all the affordable homes that he builds. You look, it's between 4 to 9% credit that he gets for building these homes. If you do another search, a medium income in North Ogden is $72,000. If a person only makes $72,000 in a household, the only home that they can afford is about $375,000. And that's before you incur a HOA fee and PMI insurance So basically, these homes are not even near to being affordable. The situation we have is that the land has gotten more expensive due to the shortage of land. And that's why a lot of things have gotten out of control. The last 6 or 7 years, property that was $100,000 is now $300,000. The lumber, of course, has gone up along with everything else. And you guys have gotten most of the comments that we've emailed to you, so I don't want to say it all again. And like I say, I appreciate the work that you've done. The only thing I want you to remember is that we were the ones who voted you in, not the developers, and we would like you to do the right thing for the city. Thank you.
Okay, here I go. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Mary Buse and I have lived in this area since 1976. Okay, is that better? Okay. So I have lived here since 1976, built my first home down in the Green Acre subdivision. In nearly 5 decades, I have watched North Ogden grow. I understand that growth is part of a healthy city, and I say healthy. But I've never seen growth of this scale and density inserted into an established lower density neighborhood like what is being proposed tonight. This decision is about 90 units. It's about whether this council will fundamentally change the zoning character of this area. The surrounding zoning has been, and I thought, R10 and R12, but I know it's bigger lots. Lower density residential. The proposal before you introduces significantly higher density into that footprint. This is not a small adjustment. This is a structural shift. Even if zoning technically allows this development, that does not mean it's appropriate. Legally possible and responsible planned are not the same thing, as this design is neither compatible nor safe for the neighborhood. This project requires zoning change to fit, and if a project only works by altering the character of the zoning, it doesn't belong here. 90 units concentrated on a relatively small parcel designed with private narrow internal roads is not measured growth, it's compressed growth. Private narrow roads handling this density create predictable problems. Congestion at peak hours, limited emergency vehicle access, on-street parking overflow, increased safety risk for children and pedestrians. This project, as currently designed, primarily benefits the developer and potentially the city in fees of density bonuses. The people who live here, the residents, are the ones who will bear the long-term consequences: small roads overwhelmed, traffic congestion, limited emergency access, and a sudden shift in neighborhood character. That's not fair growth. In addition, developments like this are likely to bring renters who stay only 2 to 5 years rather than long-term home buyers. High turnover reduces neighborhood stability and makes it harder to invest in care for the community. Stability, continuity, and long investment in the neighborhood are important for maintaining the quality and safety of North Ogden, and this undermines that. You cannot place higher density patterns into infrastructure designs for lower density living without consequences. Once zoning is changed, it sets precedents. Once density is improved, it cannot be undone. And once roads are built too small for the volume they must carry, residents live with that decision for decades. For almost 50 years, this area has grown in a way that respected compatibility and scale. This proposal breaks that pattern. Growth is not the problem. Incompatible growth is. If a project requires changing the character of the zoning in order to make it work, then it is the wrong project for this location. 50 years from now, no one will remember the political influences or pressures behind this proposal. They will only live with the results of your vote. So I hope you can look out here and see all the people that love North Ogden and its character. Please choose wisely. Thank you. Mike Nibbins. I live in Quail. Used to be Quail Ponds, but no, it's just Quail. There's no pond there. But I've always been concerned about uh, conserving water and then building more that takes water. I'm just a little confused with that. How are we supposed to do both of these? And I was talking to a neighbor the other day, and he indicated that, well, maybe we should do the infrastructure first before all the development comes. And I said, yeah. But anyway, that's just a few little remarks. And I appreciate you being up here. It's like, you know, it's like wetting your pants in a dark suit. You get a warm feeling, but nobody notices. So thank you.
Pat Burns, 2702 North Burns Lane, North Ogden. I am a North Ogden resident. And I do really appreciate you guys being up here. I know how hard that is. And I present to city councils on a weekly basis, and you guys do a great job. I actually don't have a dog in this fight. I just am a North Ogden resident tonight. But I do happen to know about developments. I've been a developer since 1998. I've done a lot of developments, and I understand there's one comment tonight that actually made me chuckle just a little. She said, if you just build what is zoned here, you'll get all of our support. That doesn't happen either. It doesn't happen. You come in to build as a developer, you get people up who don't want anybody to come in behind them. It's just a reality. I get it. I understand it. I live in North Ogden. I have a nice field behind me. I don't want it to be developed. But that's what's going to happen. Those people have property rights. They have the right to develop. I just want to clear up a few things. They were saying this is high density. This is not high density. Your master plan, future master plan calls for low density. That's 1 to 6 units per acre. What they're asking to rezone to is 6 units per acre. It's not high density. It is low density. In order to get a couple things, they're being creative and asking for an R15 zone, but keeping the same density, low density, which meets the future master plan, which is a living document. Also, city engineer can decide the size of the roads. That is in your ordinance. There's not breaking the laws. There's no rules that will be broken here. It meets and abides by every single one of your ordinances. I do also want to say your city staff is great. There's cities that I go to work in, and I almost don't want to buy property there because they're so difficult to work with. That is not the case in North Ogden. I love North Ogden. I lived here for many, 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 many years. If you look at Ward Farms, that is R18. Ward Farms is a great subdivision. I remember when it was built. I built a subdivision right above it. It's a great subdivision. There is 0 open space, 0. It just has a little bit bigger lots. That is 5.6 units per acre, I believe is what that zone allows. They're asking for a 1/4 of an acre, density allowed per acre more than Ward Farms, which is a R18. And if you look at it, again, great development, but there's 0 open space, none. This has open space. This is a good master plan community. And as far as the heights, and again, this is just notes I've taken as people were talking. I didn't come prepared this, by the way. 2-story towns only. That's great. They're not asking for 3-story towns. They're asking for single family not to exceed 35 feet. Now, in the R15 zone, it does, I believe, ask it to come down to 27, or I can't remember exactly what it is. But they're not asking for anything that every single home around there doesn't already have. This is a well-planned out, and it's not mine. I wish it was. I would buy it in a heartbeat. They are trying to reach not affordable. It's attainable. 2 different words. Attainable is what if you want your kids, I want my kids to be able to live in North Ogden. I love North Ogden. They have to have attainable housing. It might not be affordable. That's a different word. That word means two different things. Attainable means work a little harder, you could still get it. Affordable means that's what a government it says that's affordable. That's the difference in those two words, by the way. But again, I just want to say I am a North Ogden citizen, and that's why I'm up here today. Also with, again, just some of the notes that I've heard with the Jordan Park project. I know exactly what that is. I built several houses up in the Cove. I am definitely, as a developer and a builder, I'm not against this project. They put the dry lines in for the secondary water. It was planned to have secondary water. Some stuff has come up. There's solutions to fix it. Temporary solutions would be xeriscaping. There's several things that could be done. But I also want to say, I have a nice green yard. I really do, and I love it. I bet you 40% of my homes that I build, the people require xeriscaping. They're asking for it. It's looking for it. It's turning into that right now. Pine View right now is meeting to change the ordinance. The biggest water provider right now is moving to change the ordinance on how they can provide secondary water out of culinary water. They're meeting right now to make this happen. We do live in a desert. To think that we should have golf courses in our yard, it doesn't make sense. Water is valuable, but it's saying you have to have it to build a home. No, you don't. You have to have it to have a golf course in your house. Let's be smart and water wise on what we do with our water. I support both of these subdivisions. Again, I promise I don't have a dog in the fight on either one of these. But as a developer, these are both planned, master plan developments. They're great subdivisions. And Jordan Park has 37 lots, not 137. I'm sure you guys got that too. But anyway, thank you. I just wanted to kind of clarify. And again, I too hope you don't pee your pants in a light suit, but I do understand what you're saying.
John, is there anyone online?
No raised hands.
Okay, we will move on then with our agenda. Item number 5 is discussion and or action to approve ordinance 2026-03, the zoning map amendment. And this will be presented by Scott Hess for rezoning property located at 600 East, 2100 North.
All right, are we ready to discuss this? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the comments. We had several public hearings between the public notices and projects that have happened. It's like a Venn diagram of noticing requirements. So we have a lot of public involved and engaged. And I want to put kudos out to when we had Planning Commission available seats, that there were several people who came to those public comments who applied, and one who was appointed to the Planning Commission. So meetings like this drive community engagement, and we like that. So the mailed notice went out December 5th, 2025 for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission met December 17th, 2025. Lengthy public hearing was held. The snip of the minutes were in the packet for you. I'll run through a few of these points. Happy to answer some questions, but we do have Kyle White and Sam Barlow from the project here to represent the project. And they have produced, it's slightly different than what was in the packet, but they've got some updates with new exterior elevations. So to begin, you're looking at a legislative decision. This requires a public hearing at Planning Commission, and the City Council is the only one who can make legislative decisions. You're here to set the law, and then staff during administrative decisions will administer that law. And so you get to do general plan amendments, rezoning text amendments. And then once that's been created, you turn around and we help developers build legal projects that meet the requirements. The applicant is requesting a zone change for the property from rural residential RE20 to really what they're calling a residential R18 zone, but with clustered sections down to have some R15 and R1 or R4 multifamily. We go through general plan guidelines. A definite edge should be established between the types of uses to protecting integrity of each use. The rezone is immediately adjacent to other residential zones, so it doesn't create any islands other than within the project itself. But this one's a little hard to pin down because the majority of the frontage touches residential R15 to the west, residential R2 to the north, which permits twin homes or duplexes, and there are several duplexes on that north side, and residential R18 on the south. And then, of course, you have the existing farmland, RE20, which in many ways is a holding zone. It's a way to maintain lower property taxes for folks who farm. And then when they're done farming, they inevitably come in for a rezone and want to develop their property and have their property rights. Zoning should reflect the existing use of property to the greatest extent possible unless the area is in transition. I've grown up in this area my entire life, and I'm in my early 40s, and I have watched every field that I played in as a kid turn into residential zoning districts for the most part. So to say that North Ogden at 21,000 people out of a build out of 40,000 people is in transition, I think is a fair statement and doesn't go against the grain of our community is set in stone and nothing will ever change. That might be a personal opinion, but I think that's staff's opinion as well. Where possible, properties that face each other on a local street should be the same or similar zone. The developer on the south side of the project has lots that are actually larger than the ones that immediately face it on 2100 North. There are a few lots on 600 East where you have 5,000 square foot lots, and you have some of those old existing, one was 100 years old, but 70s, 80s, 90s homes that might be a little wider. But as you get north, you've immediately cross over into frontage on residential R15. So the zoning has been hopefully, made to match or be compatible. None of the zoning boundaries cross individual lots or developments, which is a requirement in the general plan. There's a call out to the moderate income housing plan goals. There was a statement earlier by the public about the $1 million, and I'll just clarify that state code requires every community of a certain size to pass a moderate income housing plan, and North Ogden has exceeded that population. We've had a moderate income housing plan adopted for almost 10 years now, and there's a carrot and a stick approach recently to that state requirement that if a city has a non-compliant moderate income housing plan, they lose what are called B and C road funds, and those are state road dollars that come back into our city, and they're used to build sidewalks, to do road overlays, to fill potholes. And for a city the size of North Ogden, it's approximately $1 million. So every year we are sure to complete that plan, do the moderate income housing plan. We have a compliant plan as of last year, and we will be required to do that again by July of this year and look through what development we have had. Staff recommended at the Planning Commission that they conduct the public hearing, receive public comment, consider the general plan, and make a recommendation to the City Council. Staff did recommend to the Planning Commission that the application is consistent with the general plan. And there's a question here. The general plan low density says 1 to 6 units per acre. 15 acres times 6 is 90 units. So on this piece of property, there are 90 rooftops. The general plan is less specific in how you organize those 90 rooftops on any one piece of ground, and clustering in subdivisions is extremely common. So there's hillside clustering that we've done in order to preserve hillside land. Sometimes you cluster to preserve natural features. In this particular case, you have 90 rooftops that have been clustered in a way to put I'm going to get the number wrong because I don't have it right in front of me. To put 28 townhomes in the middle, 52 5,000 square foot lots, and 10 8,000 square foot lots, which exceed the size of the lots that surround it almost in their entirety. But the reality is that it's still 90 homes, 90 rooftops, 90 residential boxes on 15 units. Or I'm sorry, on 15 acres. So from staff's perspective and looking at other projects that have been done, the clustering of density is a permissible use and meets the requirements or the requests of the general plan. The Planning Commission met, held their public hearing, and after a lengthy public hearing and lots of consideration, they produced percentages of the varying zones for the developer to meet. And the developer went back in good faith and redeveloped their project to meet those percentages. So the Planning Commission's recommendation was to recommend approval of the rezoning with approximately 12% residential R18, 13% residential R14, and approximately 75% residential R15. A few other quick comments that I'll make. Private streets are all over the place. Legacy North is a development of private streets and 5,000 square foot zoning. All of Village at Prominence Point are private streets. That's the multifamily development off of 1700 North west of Washington Boulevard. And City Code 11-212 during the preliminary subdivision plat gives the city engineer the ability to determine street widths and right-of-way requirements and other traffic control related characteristics. So nothing that gets constructed is ever constructed illegally. Once the decision tonight is made that what you're looking at is what is the right zone to go on a piece of property, it will move over into an administrative process where that developer will have to comply with every zoning code that we have in Title 11 and further within North Ogden City codes. I'm trying to think of any of the other specific comments, questions, concerns. Developers to a what's that? Oh, the roof heights. Yes, thank you. So the other is variance is a very specific legal term for the state of Utah. It requires you to meet specific criteria. And what they're asking for is, I would say, a variation from the code. It's a little bit different because it uses a development agreement. Development agreement is essentially contract zoning. We have dozens of them currently active in the city. And this would be what they're trying to do, or what they're suggesting is exchange the townhome height to hold those to 2 stories and exchange that height over to the residential R15 lots, because what they've found is that a 27-foot home is difficult to build with a standard roof truss package. So it requires a more expensive attic truss in order to build a 27-foot tall home and still collect the bedroom space that, even in a starter home. My first home was 1,500 square feet in Layton, built in 1942, and it was still a 3-bed, 2-bath home. So it was not grand, and to do a tuck in, a tuck under the roof type of additional living space, it just simply requires a different roof. And the majority of their floor plans, they had stated, are 30 feet or below. So they're not asking to maximize at 35 feet. But every other home in North Ogden, every other residential zoning district, the home heights are 35 feet. And then 2100 North and 600 East both would benefit from full sidewalk, curb and gutter, and asphalt improvements on those areas. The subdivisions to the west of 600 East, I looked up their dedication plats. They were from 1992 to 97. And at that time, for whatever reason, we didn't require them to do sidewalk, curb, gutter, and other stormwater improvements that we require today. And that probably had to do with the agricultural and rural feel of the community at the time. And North Ogden is in transition. So many of those homes that are flooding because they weren't required to put in the essential infrastructure at the time that that home was built, thereby leaving it to the city to pay for. And we just don't have endless capital funds to build sidewalk, curb everywhere that we would like to. And the way that we largely pick up these improvements is through development. And we've been doing that for years and years and years. Developers build your city, and then they turn around and they hand those liabilities to you to maintain in perpetuity. So I think that answers at least a handful of the questions. We have Kyle White and Sam Barlow here. I'd love for them to be able to stand up and represent the project I just give you planning commission's recommendation with a little bit of staff's background knowledge, and then have them go through, talk about it, show their revised, the site plan hasn't changed, but their revised elevations and any other information. And then I'll sit down, and if I can help with any questions and answers, I'm happy to. But it's up to, I mean, it's up to however you want to do it as far as inviting them up, or I'll answer questions now.
Does anyone have questions for Scott, or should we listen to the developers first?
Let's hear out the
Okay.
developer
Yep.
first. And then we can
Then we'll come back
launch
to
into
Scott.
questions.
Don't leave too far yet.
I'm
sitting
I'm
right
gonna-
there.
I'll sit right here.
Thank you.
You. Thank you.
I mean, yeah. Oh, I don't know.
All right, thank you, City Council, for your time tonight. Starting off with dropping my pen. I appreciate everyone's time and interest.
Can you pull up the microphone?
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start, yeah, with following up on Scott's comments, and a little bit of a walk on how we ended up here. We're here on Planning Commission's positive recommendation, with the tweaks mentioned, the substantial changes, I would say, made during the Planning Commission hearing. As one of the public comments mentioned, that if you go to our second slide here, actually, we'll move to page 3. Just to call it out, because was a public comment. This isn't a trick or a gimmick. The Randall proposal is absolutely, as the commenter stated, separate piece of property. We were working in conjunction with that property to present something together that was uniform. And we were in the room for that Planning Commission meeting and did hear lots of public comment, lots of Planning Commission feedback. And we're using the same engineer who's here in the room, and quickly pivoted, learning, hearing public's feedback. And so this is the other projects, stats posted on the left, but we were going kind of in on a pretty synchronized project. So it wasn't trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes here. It's a reflection of where we started, how we listened in that meeting to what we presented on our first Planning Commission meeting, which is a little different than what we're looking at today. That was a predominantly R15 plan with a little bit more R4 townhome units. We had 2.7 acres of townhomes, 42 individual units, which has been decreased in this most recent iteration with a couple of key changes. If we go to the next slide here, we can look at the key changes made from that plan to this plan. We introduced on Planning Commission's, recommendation, really a collaborative discussion that we had in the room on kind of how to meet the spirit. There were a lot of components of the project they liked as is. There were other components that they had concerns about, and we had a pretty constructive dialogue, as now Councilmember Neighbor can, I hope, attest to, that it was a good dialogue of seeing how can we work together to figure out something that makes sense here. So we added the R18 lots to the north and to the south, and we reduced the townhome, the amount of townhomes, the acreage of the townhomes. And also, I think, to address some of the questions, concerns, and some of the positive feedback on the plan, and reorient the townhome land in a way that benefits this community, and to make sure we're aggregating the open space in a way that makes it usable. And that is one of the unique, as one of the other public comments mentioned, that is something unique here. When you go with a straight, let's call it a straight R15 or straight R18 zone, there's no open space. And, there's a little bit more green space. There are some more lawns, but there's no open space open to the community, or in the way we've presented it here, open space along 2200, which would be the, primary means of travel through the community. It's nice to have a bit of open space to block up that the roof lines. So we think by incorporating the townhomes in the R4 zone, there's benefits that I don't think really came up in a lot of the public comments about creating more open space and, again, meeting that 6 units an acre, but doing it in a way that's actually a little less claustrophobic, not more. I did want to hit on, so I'll pull this up here. I did want to touch on a couple of the other misnomers I think that came up. Yeah, this isn't high density housing. It is working closely again with the Planning Commission, talking about low density and keeping it to 6 units an acre was mentioned, and we were a little above that before, and we reduced the plan to make sure that we were below that threshold. Not at 6.0, we're actually at 5.99. Very, very, very generous for us to come down that far. There are a few other, we're not proposing any apartments, and I'm happy, R4 zone has multiple different uses. If there's concerns about that from the public and from the council, it'd be easy to add. We'd be happy to add to the development agreement. There won't be apartments built. It's townhomes being proposed. It's not a sleight of hand. It's not a trick. So,
Quick question.
sure.
So are they deed restricted then? We'll talk about that a little bit in this.
They aren't being proposed as deed restricted as is. It's something we could consider. I'd say when we started looking into that, it does provide some concerns for buyers, for actual buyers. We're concerned about the buyers, not renters. This is not designed to be a rental community. But the deed restriction can get in the way of some financing. So there's other ways to manage that. And we've worked with partners, which we'd expect here, to include language on the purchase and sale agreement. We, again, be happy to add language in the development agreement that says with every purchase and sale agreement that the buyer has to confirm that they're an individual buyer. So there's ways of making the impact of the deed restriction be effective without doing something that sits on the deed, makes it more difficult for people to get traditional financing, and some of the more difficult kind of unintended consequences of doing something like a deed restriction. So short answer is yes, but we'd like to do it in a different way, if that makes sense.
So many of the signs that I was reading.
Switch out.
I'm sorry, I had that problem last time. I apologize. So many of the signs that I saw posted were about renters, Scott. It didn't really come up here. Is the developer's comment on deed restrictions, are you familiar with alternatives to make it more sellable, I guess is what he's saying?
No, I'm not in the market of selling homes, but
Okay.
we do see a lot about deed restriction for a certain number of years. That's
Mhm.
one way to hopefully drive home ownership. There's other ways to drive portability or getting folks who are first responders, teachers, that sort of thing. And so creating a preferential buying program. And there's a number of these tools that we've heard as cities, and they can be made as requirements during a rezone, during a development agreement, as the city council has wide latitude in those things.
Okay, that would be an item for me that would be very important. And I'm just sharing some comments, but
Sure.
thank you for answering my question.
Sure. I'm happy to, I guess, continue if there's not any specific questions. Yeah, I also did want to clarify again, along with no apartments, this isn't, one of the commenters addressed as well, this isn't low income housing. It's not affordable housing. It's not subsidized. The goal here is attainable, not kind of income restricted housing here. And Scott mentioned it. We're subject to city standards. This is a comment more for the public than for the city council. But there are concerns, about emergency vehicles and about, some safety standards and things. And, that all of those things continue on in the process. There's a long road after a rezone before the city approves. And I think someone pointed out very accurately that the city staff here is very thorough and
is tasked with holding us to account on all those important things. And I want to make sure the public knows we take those things seriously. It just doesn't have to, it isn't at this stage where those get hammered out on some of those key details. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions that the council has.
Go ahead.
So one of the questions was on the properties along 600, where they, I assume the driveway will be pointed east, not to 600.
The driveways will be pointed east, yes.
Okay. And I guess there was another one about curb and gutter. I think Scott mentioned it, that along 600 north and 21 or 608 and 2100 north will be curb and gutter
Correct.
sidewalk. And then there was a comment that I got that it seems like the water canal, not canal, whatever the splits
Yeah,
through
the
the
canal.
middle, does have easements to it that have to be maintained. And that was just something that someone said that looked like it was really close. And I guess the other question would be on the north and west side, there's canals from, I assume, either the farming or something else. Is that going to be, does that have to be covered up? Does that stop? Is that the big trees on the north side, that those go away? All that stuff.
Yeah, so as far as the canal goes, yes, I mean, there's existing easements in place. I think as part of the development, it's likely staff will require us to pipe the canal to stop it from being a safety issue. The easements still hold. There are potentially alternatives of moving that, but easement will exist around the canal no matter what. The canal company is a private company that has rights to that, and we have to work in conjunction with them to find something that works. So, as far as there's no active canals. There's a bit of a ditch on the west side. It would be likely graded as necessary to put in the infrastructure along 600 East. It's on the trees to the north. It's right along the property line. It would be on a tree by tree basis as on how that fit with the lots. But if
Okay. And then in the packet, you do mention something about trail connectivity. Is that something that, I don't see it in the plan, but is that something that's being worked?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the property sits at a really great spot. One of the public commenters mentioned one of the perks of it is being walkability to public parks, which we certainly agree with. You have the Green Acres Park to the south, and then the Barker Park, not about little over a quarter mile to the northeast. Yeah, by adding connectivity throughout here, adding sidewalks throughout and providing connectivity to what will be Monroe Boulevard, likely with proposals currently being worked on for the property next door. Yes, building that kind of walkability within the project will absolutely help us. I mean, I think will be cool to be able to go from Green Acres to Barker Park.
Yeah, I guess what I'm pointing at, and I'm maybe picking on Scott a little too, is the fact that we have a parks and trails map that shows active trails that we're trying to connect, and that this one goes, what I assume looks like it goes right over the canal. So I guess the question is that something that staff is pushing for or can require?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is Title 112613 irrigation waterways requires that open irrigation ditches be capped in the city. So that would be, there's a northwest running irrigation ditch that's been flood irrigating this for however long it's been flood irrigated, and then the canal. So the canal company would require it to be piped. City staff has suggested and requested that that be a trail per our trails plan. Legacy South and Legacy North, unfortunately, weren't held to that standard. So we have a break in the trail system that you pick up on the other end, just behind Smith's. You get IHC property has a little bit of a trail, and then you pick up the canal trail behind Smith's and over to the community center.
Okay, thanks. That's all for now, anyway. Questions?
Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
The new packet that you just handed us, is there a change as of the packet that was put in our packet what is the new change? Because I know you've made changes since planning commission, but we already saw those changes. So what's the newest that we're just now seeing?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to call those out. So if you're looking at, there's a few small ones. The site plan that we have, John, if you could go to the, site plan, one of the first couple slides. Yeah, that's perfect. So there's if you'll, it's hard to explain it without showing both, but there's a small cleanup basically of Street D. Street D used to go all the way through and connect into the other side. It didn't provide any increased connectivity. It was kind of unnecessary, so we removed it. So that's the small, so Street D went all the way to the east border of the site. So just cleaned up that little stub. That's the only change to the site plan. And then a little later in the, let me get the exact slide here. We added some different elevations for the R15 homes on slide 9. Both the old and the new still apply. There's nothing wrong. It's just some updated elevations that we got.
So
I could get them, but I don't have them.
you mentioned that previously you were, for convenience, working with the Randall property and where they pulled their application. I don't know how this works. Is there a new developer that comes in, or would you be willing to continue to keep a flow, a continuity between the two properties, no matter what comes that way?
Yeah. So,
When?
yeah. So it's a good question. So the other developer that was working on the piece next door, the rental property, was there first, and we came after them and said, hey, it'd be great if we were using the same engineer, having the same conversations. We met jointly with city staff and said, let's be collaborative about this. Well, they have since withdrawn their application. A new developer is working on something. They said, oh, there's an existing developer here. Let me get the same engineer. Let's work with city staff. So the same thing's happening again, and we're continuing to be cooperative. We think the best outcome here for everybody involved, particularly the city, is a coordinated plan. That being said, we're doing it in a way that's independence is viable, while still making it actionable if they come together. And so all of our kind of street design and everything makes it easy for them to tack on, without us needing them all of a sudden in order for our plan to be viable. So it's a cooperative, but not needing to be going together.
And should that plan not be anything what the developer is envisioning at all, then this is obviously just a site plan. It's not, or a concept plan. It's not a site plan yet. So if this road you have going through the middle, if it was completely unnecessary, for example, you'd be willing to kind of adjust as needed depending on what happens with the neighboring property. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, Scott is being adamant on that street in the middle anyway, so so you're protected there. But
I didn't realize.
But yes.
So 2200 is one of the few good east-west connections, and ultimately as it crosses the Matlock, the Randall property, and into the Barker property, it would connect to 2575 North Street. Historically in North Ogden, we have lost some good east-west connectivity. There's several spots where we have, so where we can preserve it, we are attempting to. And to your first question, that the new developer has applied for their rezone. They're looking at a new concept plan with that, but as of this morning, I haven't seen the payment come through. So it's not a public application yet. And as soon as it's public, we will post public hearing notice, and everybody in the room will receive another notice of whatever that new project looks like.
So the new property, no matter what zone it is or who the developer is required to have that same 2200. It's not like the street's going to dead end in the middle of, yeah, okay, that's what I was curious.
So knowing that, we will be in another potential zoning situation with the Randall property, with the new developer.
Yeah.
Do you envision any just looking at this, would you, Scott, and maybe it's premature, would you envision any new zones that we're going to have, that are going to be inconsistent with this plan?
I don't know.
Hard to
what-
say.
Yeah, seen their concept plan proposal. The fact that you've got 30 acres, they are individually owned, they are individually developed, but they're working with the same civil engineer. And that has a huge impact on benefits for the project, from stormwater, culinary, secondary, sewer, and so how everything lays out. And also, it allows the city to request that the two concept plans be laid out next to one another to make sure things like road networks connect together.
Yeah.
I don't know what their mix of densities are. I do not believe that they want to do half-acre, large lot, single family, especially along the 80-foot future Monroe corridor.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a concept plan come in yet.
Are we going to, I just wonder if we're going to run into problems with that. If we make a decision on this and there's some inconsistencies, or I don't know if that's the right word, but I just voice that concern just a little bit.
And I think that staff has mentioned this, but the decision on the table tonight is what the land use zone should be. So outside of that land use zone, and maybe you do a development agreement that says, thou shalt build 2200 North Street. You could say that. You can say development agreements are like sandbox zoning. You can do a whole bunch of things in them. But for the most part, what you're asking, or what Planning Commission is asking you to ponder, is, should this be an R18
Yeah.
with percentage allowances of different housing types? Should it be a standard zoning? Should it be gross density versus net specific areas? And then the rest of it, the street layouts, what happens to stormwater, curb gutter, sidewalk, will all be administered through the standard subdivision process, which is an administrative process. And just a primer on Utah State Code is that a decision cannot be said yes to on an administrative decision unless it meets all of the requirements. So once you set the zoning, the land is entitled. What happens beyond that concept plan is really, you have to meet the requirements of the city at that point.
Does the
But-
development agreement happen? What phase does that development agreement happen?
If it were my king for the day, for city council, the development agreement would happen at the same time that the approval of a rezone happens. And the reason is that you have a zoning district and all of the elements of the development agreement. So the way as staff that I look at this project is, the developer is requesting these specific variations to include the percentages of different housing types within one neighborhood or within one project that meets the overall base density, 90 units on 15 acres. So that's one. And then the second element is the restriction of the heights of the townhomes to 2 stories, and the permission in the R15 zone to go 35 feet tall, like every other single family home and zone in the city. So those two things, as I understand, would be the development agreement items. And it would be, I won't tell you what's a good decision or a bad decision, but it would be helpful for staff if a decision were to be made tonight to table the item, give feedback on those, and then table the item until a development agreement comes back, and approve a rezone and a development agreement together. And then it's done in one meeting. It creates assurances for the public. It creates assurances for the city and the developer that we all know what we're leading to.
Scott, maybe a question for you and also for John. I mean, I think we would, in an ideal world, again, to provide some of that clarity, look for an approval conditioned upon the development agreement. So we kind of agree to the key terms that need to be included in there. Then we go do it. And then you guys make sure we've implemented it the way you expected, and look for a kind of final approval, more or
Yeah,
less.
that's a cleaner way to do it.
Any additional questions for the developer? Yeah, go ahead.
I realize that our job is just to decide the zone tonight, but while we have him here and there are a lot of concerns and worries in the room, I feel like I'm sorry, I just want to ask a lot of questions and just
Please.
your initial read at this point, it helps me make my decision, I guess is what I'm saying. Talk to us about parking, garages, street parking. Is there street parking on 2100? Would there be street parking on 600 East? Would there be no parking on one side of the road? Tell us about all that.
Sure, yeah. In the private right of way shown here, it would be similar to the discussion at the work session last week. We were here listening for that feedback as well. There'd be parking on one side of the road. All of these, including the townhomes, would be 2-car garages with room for 2 cars in the driveway. So there is parking for 4 at every single dwelling, again, including the townhomes. I think there's frequently a concern. And actually, I'll just, address it quickly, just a little bit of a pivot, but on slides 10 and 11, John, if you don't mind, it just also kind of goes to, there has been comments about townhomes, and we're really trying to do something different here. And that's part of restricting the height, and making them wider to accommodate 2-car garages. It's a way of making a townhome fit into a single-family community, not creating what we show on the next slide, which is not a bad project, and it's a very different part of North Ogden, but is single-car garage, tandem, 1 car it's a great product, but it's a different product, and we don't see it fitting into this part of North Ogden. It doesn't. So we're trying to create something a little bit different. And so things like being able to park in your garage and in your driveway are important, whether it's the single family home or the townhome. It is more of the community feel we're going for here. Let's see, the parking on the side of the road. What else did I miss? I'm sorry.
On 2200, 600, and 2100.
And 2200, yeah, would be a traditional public right of way. And then, I'm
So
sorry.
2100 and 600 are both city streets, so it is allowed to park on both sides of the city streets. But they did mention that they will be backyards, so fencing as well. So it would be a long walk for somebody to park on 600 East and then walk into their house.
So you are planning on fencing the whole outside of the perimeter?
Along 600 East. And I'll be honest, I don't know if we have a plan on 2100 North yet on whether we would fence that in or not. But I believe those would, yeah, we could 600 East and 21 North.
I think this was already brought up, but there's going to be road improvements happening to 600 East to where there is curb and gutter with this project.
So 600 East, we'd be responsible for improving a 600 East along the full length of the project. Yeah.
Yep. With curb and gutter.
Same as 21st North as well.
Okay. And that includes sidewalks?
And that includes sidewalks.
On one side of the road or both sides?
Yeah, we're only responsible for our side. And there are on the south side of 21 North already has sidewalks. I believe 600 North does on most of it, but yeah, I think the part on Legacy does, but the part south of that does not.
So is that sidewalk on 2100 as well?
Yep,
The fence?
on the north side. Yep, correct.
Yep, go ahead.
Were you planning on any kind of preferential buying situation?
We're open to it.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't understand that question or hear it very well.
Well, from what I understand, preferential buying is where you give like the first month of time to your first responders and such to buy before you open it up to the public, the buying opportunities. Am I wrong? I don't know.
Had a question. It seems like a lot of the concern about the private roads within the development is that it's one side of the road with sidewalk. Would you guys be potentially willing, I know that it's probably hard to say right now, but would you be willing to look at 2 sidewalks, 1 on each side, even if the road is a smaller width?
Yeah, I think there's pretty good, from a safety perspective, I guess, is to say, I think we could look, yes. The short answer is yes, we could look at it. Right now it's planned with one side. And it's I think the way we were thinking about it is by having one side and the way that this is laid out in kind of a U shape, it really does create kind of, it will be on the interior too. It does create a lot of connectivity where there's not a lot of weird hopping and, going side to side. So there's certainly something we could look at. I think it makes sense in this community. And we've looked at a lot of examples of this with one side working out pretty effectively. And obviously on 2200 North, both sides would be sidewalk there. Again, as well as the ones we just talked about on 600 East and 2100 North. So there's a lot of infrastructure, being put in here. And we think that would, add pretty good connectivity. One other thing along the private roads, we were thinking when we heard in the work session a lot, some discussion around safety as well in that meeting. Happy to add speed bumps or other things to make sure that traffic is being slowed. Again, I think the other developer was mentioning these are not long stretches of open road where people are really flooring it, and there's no reason for anyone that's not living in the community to be on anything other than 2200 North. So I think you'd end up with people driving appropriately because it's their neighborhood and because they care about it. But adding speed bumps is another way of helping further ensure that it's safe. It's a safe community for all residents.
You heard a lot of comments tonight that R8 and R-15 they were comfortable with, but that R4 causes a lot of concerns with a lot of the people in the room tonight. And I look at the zoning map that we have, and there's R4 closer to Washington Boulevard.
Yep.
What would be your guess? With the consistency of the neighborhood and, you want it to be reflective of the current structures that are there. How far are those R4? And I don't know if we have that map, John.
Yeah.
Is that a half a mile away? Is it a mile away?
I'll have to defer to someone who's can do a quick Google Maps, some math. It's the R4 is on the east side of Washington. So it does come in, I'm going to guess it's a tenth to a quarter mile wide. And so then we're probably, I'm going to guess a half mile
About a half
further.
mile. That's probably what
and
I
it's
guessed.
it's totally a guess. I don't want to,
Yeah.
but
What's your sense of the comments on the R4 being?
No, thank you. Thanks. That's it's a good prompt. I think a lot of it is a misnomer of what we're trying to do with it. And I think that does matter. And so that's where I wanted to comment, like, we're happy to do some restrictions within the R4. And that's the perfect use for the development agreement to say, we hear what you're concerned about, but what we are trying to accomplish here isn't that. So let's say no to the things that we're hearing so much from the public. No apartments. There were multiple comments on apartments. We're not building apartments here. So great. In the development agreement, no apartments. Right? That's pretty, that was pretty easy. As far as, we border the R2 zone to the north, which as Scott mentioned, supports duplex housing. The townhomes as we've envisioned them is a more modern version of a duplex house. So what we're trying to do is say, let's find something that works. There's a 2-car garage. It's limited to 2 stories. We're not getting these kind of tall tunneled, row houses as they were described as just kind of a sort of a more claustrophobic feel. We're taking the most single family angle on R4. And so we're happy to incorporate language in the development agreement that specifies that that's what we're doing. So it doesn't become a concern to the public that, well, that's just what the developer said. And then all of a sudden, when we get the final plans, it meets the code and something happened that we didn't want. So I think it's important to recognize that we're hearing those concerns, some of the problems that having higher dense housing, can cause with just more traffic. The way that these are designed, there's just not that many. There's not that many of them, and they're designed to be a footprint that's, again, a more attainable way for a family to live in a great neighborhood, not a pocket of high income or high density, low income housing or anything like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, council member, the nearest townhomes are Majestic Views, which is north of the cannery. That's 0.49 miles. Just under quarter-mile away to the west is a two-family subdivision that's on 2175 north and 500 east. And then as you get a little bit further, well, actually right by Orton Greens Park, there's a little townhome. And I don't know when this was approved, but you've got you got 4 duplexes and 1 fourplex on 2025 street that's about 0.12 miles away. So
Okay, so-
just south of here. So
And
Oh.
just for clarification, the R4 is on the west side of Washington.
west
Just,
of Washington.
I mean,
There's not a
the
pocket.
majestic views that you mentioned.
The closer pocket, so the closest pocket on the east side is behind Walker Cinema.
Yeah.
So that would be, I could do that math as well. That's probably like 3/4 of a mile.
I don't have any further questions for the developer myself.
Okay.
Don't know how, but if everyone else feels comfortable.
Well, thank you.
I'm happy to come up again and address any questions after you guys deliberate, if that's helpful.
Do we have any additional questions for Scott? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a lot of questions.
Mhm.
Scott, would there ever be a traffic light on 2100 in Washington?
No.
We're not allowed to by UDOT.
No, we've been told that if we want another light, we have to give one up. So by UDOT, and the more likely spot would probably be 2300 north, because that is a through street by IHC. But if we did one at 2300 north, we've been told by UDOT we'd have to give up 2550, which kills the access into Smith's, which, by the way, is the most heavily visited Kroger store in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, 3 million annual visits. We
Wow.
checked it today.
Good job, economic development, man.
So and as staff, to be honest, I've pushed back on UDOT on that. I don't know that Washington Boulevard in this area needs to be an acceleration and deceleration lane to get people really quickly out of town. Downtown Ogden, we also don't need a stoplight every block, but 2100 is not an area slated for a stoplight.
Do you want me to keep going?
Sure.
Okay. So on 600 East and 2100, they're existing roads that the city owns, right of ways. 600 East doesn't have a curb and gutter. Neither of the roads have continuous sidewalk. If this property, let's just say for a moment, stayed agriculture land forever, at what point would 600 East and 2100 North roads be repaired, have curb and gutter, have continuous sidewalks? Who pays for that? Is there a budget for that? When and how and if at all?
Never.
Where's Dave? So
He's hiding.
He's hiding.
My answer is honestly almost never. And so they aren't major traffic generating roads, so they wouldn't rank very highly on state and other local, like state and county funds in order to do it. And it's 0.33 miles. So Dave, if you can tell us
Exactly right.
like how much would that cost us to do it?
0.33 miles. I mean, they say a mile of road is about $1 million, so you're talking,
Does that include sidewalks?
that's not including sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's just the road itself
Or curb and gutter?
and then you're talking curb and gutter is
Water.
$100 a foot, so I mean,
So it's about $170,000 worth of sidewalk. Just
no, that's
along-
just the curb and gutter.
I'm sorry, $170,000 worth of curb and gutter along 2100 and then the length of 600.
I see that as a non-issue just personally because no matter what zone is approved, they will be required to put sidewalks on 600 East and 2100 North.
My point was just that we can't wait till that's improved and then develop because it's the developer that pays for it and makes it happen. The city doesn't have the budget to do that. So no matter what
yeah,
the
that's a good point.
project goes in, we can't develop it first because we don't have the money to do that in the city. Thank you.
You stay here, Dave.
Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the infrastructure complaints that we've heard? Water, sewer, electric, schools, some of those things.
I'm going to make Dave come back up because our city engineer isn't in the room. The biggest challenge to this entire area is how you get stormwater off of the property. So 2100 needs a transmission line from east to west to get the stormwater out to Washington Boulevard. You can't get the stormwater, as far as I understand, over into Orton, Green Acres, and even if you could, there isn't the capacity in Orton Green Acres detention basin to accept it. The developer's engineer has shown a plan that maybe they can push the water north to 2300 and end up in that storm drain system. But that's stormwater is the major concern on this property. And by leaving it agricultural and not having any improvements, the stormwater runs where the stormwater will run. So development in many cases fixes existing issues because it collects, detains, and puts that stormwater into locations where it should be. As far as I understand, this property does not have an issue with irrigation water. It has secondary water rights. So that part is a non-issue like up the hill. And then we would collect will serve letters, which is an assurance from Central Weber Sewer District that they can accept the sewer. Generally, will serve letters for North Ogden have been a non-issue because they know that our future growth is out to 40,000 people. So they are willing to accept our sewer, so long as the pipes are sized adequately to do so. So there's the main infrastructure issue that we have right now is the fact that the surrounding areas have no sidewalk, curb, or gutter, and gutter is a physical surface transmission line of stormwater. That's honestly what it's there for.
So if any development, no matter what development were to go in here, it's not like the city has just not thought of some of these things or could escape any of these water, sewer, electric, schools, flooding, high water table, drainage. It's not like that could just be forgotten about or missed from the city because of the processes, is what you're saying.
No, and the developer's only required to do the improvements on the piece of property that they have. So otherwise it would be offsite improvements, which sometimes can be negotiated or pioneered is what it's called. And then they request a payback from other developers who have benefited. And anything beyond that would be in the lane of exactions where we're requiring them to do something that isn't beneficial to their piece of property. But there really is no, I mean, the way I say it, and I've been a city planner for 18 years, so take that with that grain of salt, is that nothing that gets built is illegal. Everything that gets built follows the codes and requirements and restrictions of the day. And there are times when you build something and you realize that you had an inadequacy of some sort and codes and rules change. So our Title 11 is a living document. That's our codes. Our general plan is a living document. Our zoning code is a living document. And nothing stays static at all. I mean, there are some assurances there with our codes, but nothing that gets constructed is constructed without going through the process of being reviewed. And it's fire, culinary water, storm sewer, actual sewer, city engineer, city planner, zoning code, all of that gets reviewed and prior to development, which again is the steps well beyond tonight's discussion about rezone and entitlement of land.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? Go ahead.
So I am struggling to understand how I understand that this would add and help our moderate income housing plan. I totally get that because it's one more line item that you can add on your list for the state. But I'm struggling to understand how we absolutely need this development to continue to have our moderate income housing plan be approved by the state. Uh, I I just have this feeling that the amount of multifamily units that we already have fully entitled within the city would be sufficient to meet that plan. Do you have any comments on that? That's something that just has really kind of eating at me. I feel like it's a potential good thing that could add to the report, but I don't believe that it, I don't bel I feel like we're not at jeopardy to lose our BNC road funds if we don't approve this development as it's put.
Yeah, it totally depends on how DW, it's the Department of Workforce Services, and HUD is who reviews those plans. And it depends on how they look at it. And I have been asking them for years, what percentage of our city should be X type of housing, and whether that's connected units, small lots, affordable, whatever it is. And nobody can give me an answer. So as of our 2022 plan, and I'm going to get the number wrong, the city's something like 22% connected units between our existing water connections and the planned developments. And so we count housing units based off of the water connections. That's an easy way to do it. So does the city need this project for moderate income housing? I don't know. It's one of those, there's no number that says, yes, you've done it and yes, you haven't done it. And North Ogden has not been shy about rezoning and creating multifamily housing. We really haven't. I think we've been very good and compliant. One of the strategies that we've chosen to go with from the state's list or menu is rezone for densities that promote the availability of moderate income housing. Um, every developer has a different ability, like financing stack and an ability to bring things to market. So we have 1,200 units sitting out there that have been approved for 5 years that cannot get commercial financing right now. And who knows when those will actually come to market, but they're there then and entitled. So I can't say that this plan, this project is needed to meet our moderate income housing goals, but I can say that by doing things that rezone for creating attainable housing meets the goal.
Okay. I hear some high level stories of surrounding communities that are kind of begging developers to do some multifamily projects because they don't have anything in their city to help towards that moderate income housing plan. So I get it in a community like that, but that's just kind of just trying to throw it out there.
Yep. And this is one area, it will be a bit of a change. I mean, if you zoom out just a little bit, this area is not homogeneous. You've got duplexes on two sides of it. You've got several different lot sizes, several ages of homes. And I would disagree that this is dropping density in a residential neighborhood, as Councilmember Watson lives in a residential neighborhood that is right, like you can throw a frisbee to 340 approved townhomes and apartments.
Three directions.
In three directions.
Just like.
And then just further, staff's opinion is that housing variety is good, that having an area of your city where somebody could purchase their first home, take the equity from that, move into their second home, and the equity from that and move into the third home, and not have to change school districts, their church groups or other social groups that they have, and not have to move in order to move up to move out of their community. And by concentrating all of our multifamily in one area of the city, we will create that paradigm.
So at the planning commission meeting, there was a planning commission member that at one point motioned to do just a straight R-1-5, and then discussion kept going, and they kind of went back and forth to say, okay, well, let's do this percentage that is coming as the recommendation now, where we have a percentage of R-1-8, percentage of R-1-5, and a percentage of R4. So I just, the more that I keep thinking about this is I think it would be a pretty fair idea to do this land all as R-1-5. I think there's some residents that would still be a little upset with that because they will feel like that is a little bit more dense than they would like. But I do think that with the surrounding zoning, it seems pretty reasonable. Or we could do an R-1-8 along the north side as is already in the proposal, and allow the developer to do R-1-5 throughout the rest. it seems like a very fair deal to the developer, because as of right now, they're guaranteed right now they could come in and build RE20. We know that the market is such that I think that would be very difficult for them. But I feel like this is somewhere where we could meet them a little bit more in the middle. I understand that the townhome proposal has taken the height down from 3 stories to 2 stories. Totally think that's a great thing that they've done to help the development and put in feedback that residents have given them. But I'm just kind of leaning towards this is something that could be great as almost as an entire R-1-5.
And just in response to that, it's not, or it would be justifiable next to Legacy South and ultimately Legacy North, running the math, a gross density on R-1-5 would create 130 rooftops. So you would have a 40 rooftop increase, and you would lose the ribbon of green space down the middle that they're preserving along the canal.
Isn't that canal space, no matter what, going to be some sort of green space? You can't build a house on top of it, right?
Yeah, but you can deed restrict it to not allow anybody to go into it like Legacy South. So though that traverses through people's backyards, there's posted no trespassing signs. It might be for the benefit of those residents, but that's an interesting development with the no fencing and other restrictions that was done when John Hanson developed that project. I just wanted to point out though, that by just running the numbers, 15 units an acre, acres 43,560 feet, and then you divide that by 5,000 square foot lots, you get 130 units.
Can I add to that also? Having served on the planning council, and you're right, we kind of struggled with the starting point and wanted to be responsive, in those percentages kind of popped out there, but I don't believe that they were hard fast. It was to get it to the next stage for the council to consider, not so much as this is mandatory. And the developer has done very well, I think a very reasonable job in being responsive to the planning committee. I like the idea of what you're suggesting on the south side though, because we have R8 on that road. I kind of like the idea of it being a mix of the R8 on that road, and then I'm comfortable with the R-1-5 for the rest of the area. So you kind of started out there.
Yeah,
I kind of like where you started
It would
out
be the way I see it is it would be R-18 on the north side, as they have already put in there,
Yeah.
and R-18 on the south side. So
Yeah. Do they have?
but and Scott brings up good points. It adds to the total rooftop. So
yeah.
I'm not saying it's a slam dunk. People are so upset with the idea of townhomes that is this what they want us to do?
I mean, that's the biggest issue that I've heard tonight is that.
And I feel like those smaller homes on R-1-5, they're not affordable, but they could still fall in that attainable category. Most of those homes that would be on an R-1-5, they're going to be 2,000-ish square feet usually. And it's still going to be more expensive than a lot of people can afford, but it's going to be less expensive than a home that's built on R-18, R-10 or higher, R-1-10.
Well, I'd be looking for a motion on or you got a question or a comment?
Can I keep discussing?
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. So what I'm hearing then is if we zoned the entire thing R-15, then we're adding to the rooftops. If we didn't do an entire similar zone of the whole property, if there's some kind of mix, then we do
The development agreement.
development agreement, right? And no matter what the development agreement is, the suggestion from staff is to table this to be able to come up with a development agreement that, remind me how you said it.
So it would actually, if the council were to approve it, it would be approved with conditions.
Right.
And one of the key, just to think about, and we could have Sam or Kyle with, Western Lands come up and talk to us about this, but one of the key considerations asked is that R15 at 27 feet tall they have a difficult time drawing a floor plan that meets that height. So I think the concession would still be asked for the 35-foot tall.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that, but I think that's what would come.
Yeah.
So the council could make a recommendation for approval of X, Y, or Z with the condition that they come back before final approval with a development agreement that fleshes out those final
Right.
pieces.
So these conditional statements that we would make tonight, we would need those conditional statements unless we choose an entire zone that's the same.
Right.
And so we could either, I mean, I guess we could pick any zone, but if we didn't feel like we wanted to do all one continuous zone, then it's good to come up with these development. So one thing that was brought up from the comments, I'll just tell you my thoughts, is that a variance legally, as has already been mentioned, is very hard to come by, and it's a very rare thing legally. And this is not what they're asking for. They're asking for concessions within a development agreement. And so concessions may sound like we are allowing them to have something different than what our standard says. But on the other hand, as a city council, one of our themes, I would say, is the win-win, and that we're always trying to find a win-win. And so one of the benefits of having a development agreement with these concessions, I'll call it, instead of variances, these concessions, is that we can ask for things that benefit the community. So maybe we say we want fences around it, we want it deed restricted, I'd love to see a trail coming straight out of the corner of it to get over to Orton Park. And maybe we could even have them pay for some kind of like flashing crosswalk sign. We could ask for them to do preferential buying. We could ask for them to have sidewalks on both sides of roads, or we could say no apartments. We could say no 3-story townhomes. We can ask for a lot on these concessions if they're saying they don't want to do the 27 feet height. And so I feel like that win-win is, no matter what zone or development this looks like, the concessions is a positive for us, is all I'm saying.
Councilman Pulver.
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of talking, and I think the biggest thing that we have to, as a council, and I think you were getting there, councilperson Watson, is the fact that concessions, right now, they're asking for a different zone that we have in the general plan. It is going to be, everybody keeps saying, well, it's close to low density in aggregate. Anything with R4 in it, I don't care what you say, it's still in aggregate. It's still an R4 in a zone. I just think that's off the table. I don't even think I won't think about it. But I don't like HOAs. I don't like the private streets. But I get that that's something you have to do. But I think the concessions have to be more. I'm not comfortable with what we're asking for yet. Trails are a must. I think like Christina, you were saying other things. I think one of the concessions for this zone should be doing the other side of 600 East. I think there's other things that we need to be mandating, that this is a substantial change for that area. I know everybody keeps saying, well, there's zone over here and over there. I honestly don't care. I think the biggest thing right now is that the general plan and the zoning say this. And if they want to do something different, come with the checkbook. Let's get some more stuff on there, because to be honest, I'm not ready for, what we're talking about here. I get it. R5, whatever 5 was over here, great. Something like that. But to be honest, anything less that's what's on the zoning, I haven't seen enough to say yes at all. So I think we need to, as a council, win-win is not there yet. So if we start talking about a development agreement, well, bring more. So I think there's more that needs to be brought. I'm just getting a little bit, we were going all along and, oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot of things in here that we're giving away with no return. And I think I get it. We're trying to develop the city. Great. We have different zones for different things. We have different communities that are designed to be homogenous, not cookie cutter and, oh, make a little pocket here, make a pocket there. That's not what this is for. I don't like it. I don't think we're there yet. I think we do need to table this, but I think the biggest thing is that I think the developer needs to understand no R4 period. And there needs to be a lot more concessions, just my opinion.
If we do table it, then we need to have the list of everything right today, or no?
No.
The concessions, we don't have to have the list of
I'll
concessions today?
defer to John, but no, I mean, you can.
We need to
continue
give
an
him
item to
some
another.
direction of what you want. We need to give staff direction. Go ahead, real quick.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's just in the spirit of some of the comments to talk about. We would love to end in a place where we have some direction to go back. That you've listed several things that we could talk about. I think you remember Pulver mentioned a few things that we could give on to. I think mentioned kind of an R15 everywhere zone. There's with some R18, particularly along the south. I mean, we can start with one of these frameworks and then talk about some of those gives that I think you both have mentioned that can make sense. Again, I think people have noted our kind of spirit of trying to work together. So I don't want it to seem like, if we can, I'd love to do it and try to propose some things, see if we can walk here with something that works. And then we'll come back and present what we came up with that meets that criteria. So I think to start, I mean, if the R15 zone, and I didn't hear any specific opposition, but the concessions to get the height to 35, I mean, that's hugely important to the development. To building something on that footprint is important for that. So with that in mind, if we go R15, whether it be exclusively R15 or a little bit of R18 where it makes sense, that's a key part of kind of our position. The flip side is true. And I think we should, I mean, frankly, just like write down some of the things you guys mentioned that are important that we just would commit to, as opposed to saying, we'll think about it, we'll look at it, we'll look into it, right? So trail system to provide connectivity down to the south.
Deed restrictions, wording, language.
Yeah, I was going to say, let us propose something, and if you don't like it, we'll talk about it. We want to make what you're trying to do with the deed restriction happen. We completely agree. So
No apartments,
no apartments.
no 3-story townhomes. These are just my opinions. I don't know how the council feels.
And with 35 feet in an R15 zone, we'll just say no R4. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of support. So we're happy to do that.
Another thought that hasn't been discussed yet, which you guys may or may not agree with, is along 600 East from 2100 North to the very north of the project. It looks like the proposal is R-1-5 for that whole strip. And that might cause some heartburn on the 35 feet because you have small single level cottages that are part of the legacy development that will be, kind of looking up against some pretty high buildings. So, but
Pretty good distance though.
yeah. So it's just a thought. I mean, I'm not saying you guys have to bring that back, but it's a thought that you could put into place is how will you handle the 600 East strip of homes? You could propose that they're all 35 feet and it probably won't be a big deal. It probably will look great. It probably will not be a problem, but I just want you guys to think about that and potentially. So basically you could put north buffer, west buffer, and south buffer, and then everything else within R-1-5, something to that extent.
Sure. I think on the west side, maybe this is a way of doing it. One of the things that Scott mentioned about a project, we're asking for 35 feet. Not every plan is 35 feet tall. So what we could do along the west border is keep it R15. I think that makes the most sense directly across the street from R15, but limit heights to 32 feet or something where you're kind of getting a gradual. So it's not a stark difference from one side of the road to the other. Again, beauty of the development agreement, it's pretty specific, but
yeah,
why not?
anything that shows progress and that you're working on it, I think we'll appreciate it. And then I do realize that all of the other zones are going to be in that 35-foot range. That's probably what Scott was like, hey. But yeah, if that could be something that's built in. Sidewalks on both sides of the roads, I think we've talked about that.
We could, so again, the only part on 600 East, there is a stretch that's not on Legacy that doesn't have sidewalks. That should be fine. I just want to make sure I can see it before I say 100% yes. But again, in our response on a development agreement, we'll put that as a condition.
You're talking about the west side of the street.
West side of
It's not.
600
Yes.
East, that is
Okay.
not. We're 100%
So yeah,
doing
take
east
it
side
out of that
border regardless.
The curbing,
I was-
I don't know.
Yeah, I would, and just to clarify, I was talking about the private street. First of all, I was talking about private streets within the development having sidewalks on each side. Councilman Pulver's comments were 600 east sidewalks on both side all the way down.
Okay.
And curb and gutter is what we're saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a good give. I like the willingness of this conversation. Concessions.
Chris, are you comfortable where we're going with this discussion?
More is good.
Okay.
Sorry. More is good. Yeah. I think
Okay, you're
the
comfortable.
bottom line is that we're coughing up a lot of green space that, I mean, this was a pasture. I understand that, you know, the property owner has rights, I mean, to develop this, and I fully support all of that. But to basically say, hey, we're going to go from RD20 to whatever the crap we want without any concessions, I think
Yeah,
is
okay, good
not
point.
smart.
Yeah.
So
And obviously this is, again, it's a condition, but is the council comfortable recommending with these conditions, obviously subject to you seeing what we implement? And if for some reason we can't hit any of these, we'll let you know. We wouldn't be meeting the terms and we'd have to renegotiate. But if we meet these, are you guys comfortable with let me make it pretty specific so you guys could make it specific back. A R15 zone throughout with up to 35 feet, with the homes along bordering the south side of the property being R18 zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just with the little detail of
With the
600
details.
east, you might lower down the roof height
Mhm.
to make it a little better for the neighbors.
Would that be keeping the north side R18 as well?
If let's just say, if you guys sprinkled some R-1-8 in there, we're all gonna be very happy. Seriously, we will.
The only reason I hesitated more on the north, honestly, the way that it lays out, it's not that big a deal. The R2 directly to the north is there's a lot of duplexes and townhomes, so it honestly doesn't feel as compatible there, whereas on the south, it's directly across the street from. So that's the only reason I hesitated, but
Okay.
so there's reason for that, but
You have what you need, Scott?
is there?
We need a motion, right?
No, I was making sure Scott knew what he had.
Oh, yeah. Well, can I just throw one more thought out? And I'm not talking to the developer here, just to the council, but if we were to agree to this R15 with the R18 down on the south, then it's a possibility that there'll be more rooftops than what the proposal was. So in the current proposal with the townhomes, there's quite a big area of green space that we might be taking out in the middle by saying R15 instead.
well, they still have to do detention ponds to mitigate any water. So
Well, true. It might. be
that still
less
that's
green space.
something they're not
Do,
going
and
to
I
change.
have, I'm so sorry. You specifically said you weren't addressing me, so that was very rude and I apologize. I just want to say, I think that math might have been on gross acreage. When you take out the roads and stuff, we wouldn't be able to achieve that number of homes in an R15 and R18. So I can't.
If you take out 20% for roads and detention, which is kind of like a baseline depending on public-private, you're closer to about 103.
But
So you're more than 90, but you're fewer than 130.
So it's a difference
And
of 13.
The only reason I bring this up is
But
because
he's got
in the
this thing that
current-
goes through the middle that he can't. Yeah.
reason I bring this up is because in the current proposal, it is exactly 90 units for 15 acres, which is 6 units to the acre, which is technically by our code low density. I mean, there's a lot of comments about high density, but it's technically low density as an overall plan as it currently sits.
As
We-
inaccurate,
technical.
inaccurate. Yeah.
As a combined development agreement. If we were to switch it to R15, then we are switching to medium density, is
we
what I'm
will,
saying.
we will cap it to 90. We wouldn't be able to fit more. I'd have to double check the math, but we
just
wouldn't
saying.
fit more than 90.
A devil's advocate for a second, so we know what we're getting into.
We can add that as a condition, no more than 90.
So I'd be looking for a motion to table until we get a development agreement.
I just, well, first of all, I do want to thank the developer. I truly strongly believe that you guys have listened to the residents and listened to the council. I appreciate that so much. So, you know, I think that this is the start of something that could be really good for the community. So thank you so much.
Appreciate
Need a motion?
If you so desire.
I move that we table the discussion on the rezone of going from RE20 to R-1-5/R-1-8 with R4.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Councilmember Dowd.
Yep, discussion.
And the second, yep, any discussion?
Yeah, do we need to add anything to the motion that says we're coming back with, do we have all the language we need?
Yeah, I think we'll listen to the recording and then we'll work with the developer to make sure that we have something that comes back and John's written notes.
Okay.
Sam's written notes. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Does this have to be a roll call or can this be a voice vote?
We can't take
We can't make
comments out of
comments.
order.
No.
You will have an opportunity to comment after.
Okay, all in favor of tabling till a future date, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, moving on. I'm actually gonna ask for a motion for a 5-minute saunter
Oh,
since we've been going for a while.
Second.
No, I need a
I'll
motion.
make-
Motion.
I can't.
Sorry. As moved, so moved.
Okay, it's motion by Councilmember Pulver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all right, we're in a 5-minute break. Okay, we're gonna get started back up again.
How old is that? I know. So how old is that hat?
This is
12.
the county. I sound.
I have a Weber State hat that looks probably older than that.
All right. Gonna re-adjourn our meeting. We're moving on. Discussion regarding secondary water in the Jordan Park subdivision, and our presenter will be. Do we have staff presenting first or John?
We have Barry for items.
Or Barry? Okay. So we're gonna go straight to Hamlet Homes with Barry Gittleman.
John, you've got the presentation. Good evening. I'm Barry Gittleman. I'm the president of Hamlet Homes, and I don't personally live in North Ogden, but I am a property owner and taxpayer in North Ogden. We are going to talk about the North Ogden subdivision, Jordan Park, which is 37 home sites, not 137. And we have been working on this project for more than 2 years. There were quite a few public, I counted 5 opposed and 1 in favor during the public comment this morning. I will address each of their comments that they brought up. And then we also have been meeting. We came before the council back in September. We got a lot of good feedback then and today and last week. So we'll address all of that and go through it as quickly as we can. Go ahead, John. So we'll talk briefly about how we got here, what we're doing about our water situation, and what we're proposing tonight. Next. We were under contract in 2023. We closed on our land in January of 2024. Someone made a comment earlier saying that our plan was, or they implied that our plan was to move forward and then ask for forgiveness later. That is definitely not the case. That was never our plan. Our seller had an obligation to provide and resolve secondary water for the subdivision. They signed documents that they had done that. Turned out that was not the case. They had an agreement with Randy Marriott before he sadly and suddenly passed away, and that's sort of how we ended up in this mess. That's what it talks about up there. We closed in January. It was more than 6 months after that before we found out that there was any problem with secondary water, and we've been working for the last 2 years to try and resolve it since then. Subdivision is located on Mountain Road, northeast, high elevation, above 5,000 feet. And some of the water companies are not able to service the subdivision due to the altitude and elevation. Some have bylaws prohibiting them from servicing it. We have put the secondary water lines in the ground. They're dry. The cove is the subdivision adjacent to us to the north. The original plan was to connect to their secondary water lines. We've not done that, but we have the water lines in the ground. So as soon as we're able to work things out with any of the 3 water companies that service this general area, we will connect and we will use secondary water from a secondary water company, not from the city of North Ogden. Next. Plat was recorded in July of 2025. Been a little over 6 months. Next. And so we have, as Brian Bartholomew mentioned, we've been pursuing all options since the moment that we discovered that there was a problem with secondary water for the subdivision. We've reached out to Weber Box Elder Water. We've reached out to Mountain View Water. We've been working with the city. We've been working with Pine View Water. We have a call scheduled tomorrow morning with the president of Pine View Water to discuss it with him. We did get our development mostly complete. We paved in the fall of 2025. We signed an agreement with the city with the understanding that we were way out over our skis on this issue. We were taking significant risk. We've got millions of dollars of debt on the property, and we're moving forward to try and develop it and build some nice quality homes and bring some new homeowners to the city of North Ogden. With paving done, we have not connected to the water system for secondary, but we have primary culinary water for all the homes, and we have 2 homes under construction. We have purchased some water shares. There aren't many available. We've reached out to all three of those water companies, and many of them, all three of them have told us they can't service us. Next. Here's the North Ogden City Code. It does say that the applicant is required to provide secondary water as a condition of approval. The project was approved by the city. We do have a plat recorded. And we had a plan for secondary water through Mountain View irrigation. The code says if secondary water is unavailable, a deferral agreement shall be entered into for future connections and culinary water used for landscape irrigation. We have heard loud and clear over the past year from many of these city council meetings, from planning commission, from city council, and from public comment that nobody wants city culinary water to be used for irrigation. And so we are proposing that we will not use a single drop of city culinary water for irrigation. The intent of this code is also to prevent using city drinking water for irrigation. And so what we are proposing as a temporary solution, I believe complies with the intent of the city code, though not the letter of the law. And we acknowledge that. Next. So high elevation, small lot count, city culinary water is already installed to service the homes. And so we're requesting a temporary deferral agreement in accordance with the city code. We have a plan to work with Weber, Box Elder, and Pineview in conjunction to provide normal secondary water to the subdivision. That is not available from those two companies today, but our attorney will speak to the vote that happened at Weber Box Elder Water today. So we have a path forward, but as a temporary solution, we are proposing that we finish building homes and finish the development of the subdivision without irrigation water. So not a drop of city water, just as a temporary solution. And then as soon as we're able, we'll connect to service from Pineview or Weber Box Elder Water. If you guys want us to create an HOA to enforce it, another comment we've heard from the public last week was they don't want us to place a burden on the city, that the city has to enforce rules so that our future homeowners aren't going to illegally use city water for their front yard. We'll create an HOA to do the enforcement, so it's not a burden on the city to do the enforcement if you want us to put that in place. And if you want us to bond for the future connection, we're happy to do that as well. Next. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to let Craig talk a little bit about the meeting that happened with Weber Box Elder Water.
Yeah, my name's Craig Smith. I'm a water attorney. I'm actually your water attorney. I told Barry I would help him. I've worked for Hamlet before. I'd help him try to find water. I'm not going to get adverse to my client here. And I think I found a solution that I will propose to or tell you about tonight. Obviously Barry thought he had water, didn't have water. We've looked all around, contacted Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. They have water contracts available to provide water here in North Ogden and for this Jordan Park subdivision. The contracts, and this was talked a little bit about by Jeff Humphrey last week. And I asked Jeffrey to come tonight, but he said he's already spent his time here with the city council last week, so he wasn't planning to come back. So they will contract. They have a water conservation program where you are limited to 0.38 acre feet per lot. And if you will limit to that, they will provide the water. Now that didn't correspond with Weber Box Elder, and that's the entity we're really talking about, contracting with Weber Basin. I know it's very confusing. They run all these entities out of Weber. It's Weber Box Elder will be the secondary water provider. They will enter into contract to purchase that water from Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. Today, their board met, Weber Box Elder board met to approve the 0.38 acre feet per lot. They had a higher amount, but as Jeff was telling you last week, the future is less water for outdoor use. We all know that. I mean, go outside and look around and you'll see why we have to do that. So the next step, we have a call tomorrow morning with Jeff Humphrey to I said, what, I asked Jeff when I talked to him today on my way up here, I said, Jeff, you know, what's the next steps? And he said, well, we'll go ahead and go forward and get the contract with Weber Basin with them. And then he said, all we have to do is work out the details of how we actually provide the water, you know, physically provide it. And he said, so we're having a call to do that tomorrow. They will buy the water from Weber Basin under their contract, a long-term, we all know, is everybody familiar with Weber Basin contracts and how that kind of works? You know, anyway, the point is they have the water. When you contract it, you've got it for, they're not like 5-year or 10-year, they are forever contracts for water. So this is not going to leave the city. They will provide the water to Weber Box Elder. We will have the Jordan subdivision join into Weber Box Elder's boundary. So they'll be part of Weber Box Elder. They are going to put in a pump to pump the water up from their pond that's nearby. And we expect to have 0.38 acre feet for every lot this summer. That's the plan going forward, and happy to provide whatever assurances you need. You know, if you need something from Jeff or from Weber Basin, we can provide those. So I'm glad to say we have a solution. I know this water's I mean, I wouldn't be here and wouldn't be making money if water wasn't a problem. It always is. John's smiling there. So
What's the time, what is the time frame on the solution? What's your best estimate of
summer.
that? This
We'll have
summer?
it this summer. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we can sign literally the thing I was most nervous about was I wasn't sure Weber Box Elders board would go along with it, but they voted today. And so Weber Basins, we could have signed the contract before, except they had to get their Weber Box Elders thing. So yeah, we're talking about this summer having this water.
So you're looking to continue with construction, even though you don't have it right now. And I'm just wondering with John, how would we work that out, John?
So that's Barry mentioned it, the deferral agreement. So the
Oh,
city would enter into
okay.
a written agreement that says, you know, here's the time frame for you to provide water finally. Here's the money you're going to post. Here's all the stuff.
Okay.
In place.
Okay.
The only one kind of nuance we have is they do have a home that is essentially ready for an occupancy permit. And I think I would like in this discussion tonight for the council to let me and Scott work and Dave work with Pineview. And if we have the same level of confidence that Craig has in it moving forward, that we can make the decision to let them get occupancy for that building. And then we'll bring the deferral.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And please do. I want to make sure we, like I say, I have a lot of confidence because I've worked with these entities before. And worked with the city before. I don't want to come here and cut, And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to apologize to the city recorder. My name is Craig Smith. I forgot to introduce myself, which you're always supposed to do at these meetings. And I forgot to do it. I've been to lots of these meetings, so I should be able to remember that, but I'm getting, old and can't remember everything. But yeah, we'll make sure that I'm happy to work with John. I've worked with him before, obviously. And make sure that, we have all the guarantees in place from, the big dogs that we're working with, which is Weber Basin, the biggest one, and Weber Box Elder. And so we can deliver on what we're promising tonight.
You say, so my main question was time frame. So you've already answered that. My second question is, how do we enforce that time frame? What if something doesn't happen that is this summer?
I'll leave that to Barry, but I'm sure he's going to be willing to let
Yes.
you put some teeth into that.
Good question. We would propose addressing that in the deferral agreement with John. So that's exactly what your city code addresses in that section that was up on the screen. If we want to limit it to 6, 9, 12 months, we can do that. If we want to limit it to a specific number of homes, we have 2 homes under construction right now. As John said, the first home will be finished in a couple weeks. The second home is planned to be the model home for selling out of in a neighborhood. That home's less than 2 months away from being finished, and home number 3 hasn't even started yet. So we would be willing to address that in the deferral agreement with John. That would have to come back before the council to approve. And we can limit it by time, by number of homes, or both if you prefer.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Barry? Yeah, Councilmember Pulver.
It's an easy one. So you said model home, that kind of piqued my interest. So you're obviously going to put some kind of landscaping on there, right? I mean, you're not going to just leave dirt on there and go, hey, here's our model home. So I guess the question, when you talk about deferral agreement, we're not saying deferral, hey, you can use culinary until you get this done. You're not going to anything until they get it done.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the model home won't be done for 2 months. We would expect that in, a couple of weeks, we have a deferral agreement that's signed and approved by the council, that's drafted by John. And then we can landscape the model home with water from Weber Box Elder.
Okay.
So secondary water from them. If the time takes longer to get the deferral agreement done, then we had proposed that we could do xeriscaping, we could do a combination of native plant materials that don't require irrigation and rock gardens or other landscaping. And then when we get the secondary water worked out with a secondary water company, then we'll put in regular landscaping. But we expect that it's going to be water conservation type of landscaping without tons of sod and golf courses in people's front yards, as was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you heard Jeff, I listened last week. I didn't come, but I listened online. And you heard Jeff mention how they enforce it, and we're happy to put whatever things you also want us to put in to make sure it's enforced. Each lot gets 0.38 acre feet and they don't get any more. And that seems kind of draconian to some of the people that have been around, and we like our big lawns and stuff, but that's the world we're in now. And that's what you're going to see from here on out everywhere.
I mean, the Great Salt Lake is down almost 10 feet from normal levels. Our state's been in a drought for a long time. So water conservation is more and more of a requirement. Jeff Humphrey did mention last week that their new metering system allows them to enforce it as Pineview Water. So if someone exceeds their allowed water, and they get shut off by Pineview. So the city doesn't have to enforce it, and HOA doesn't have to either.
Weber Box Elder, but
Right.
it's confusing. They run out of the same building, but it's the Weber Box Elder part. But yeah, they can enforce it and will enforce it. But we're also happy to make sure we have whatever enforcement that you're comfortable with. So in case you say, well, what happens if they fall asleep at the switch or don't do their job? I think they will. That's one of the reasons why I suggest, Barry, we go with Weber Box Elder, because they're big and reliable and they've been around, and they're not going anywhere.
Okay.
So last week they were talking about with the meters, they weren't sure if they were going to be using them. They're going to use them and
Yeah,
going to
but
enforce them
secondary,
and turn it off.
that's a fairly new Utah law, and that's a lot of money, and that's to do that. I don't think they're all in, but these will have each house will have a meter for its secondary water use and the ability for it to be shut off.
So they will shut them off.
They will
Yeah.
shut them off. That's
And-
what Jeff told me, and
Yeah.
I said that last night.
And what Jeff said last week at this meeting was that all new homes will get the new automatic meters that allow shut off. The existing customers will get their older meters replaced with the new meters within the next 1 or 2 years.
If I remember right, he said that it would be, if they got to the point where they were turned off, that they have to pay a $500 fee to get them turned back on the next year.
That's exactly what he said.
There is.
The nice thing is if you, like these houses, if you put in things like drip irrigation and water wise, 0.38 is going to be plenty of water for these lots. I mean, it's not going to be plenty if you try to do it all turf grass and, water it three times a week. But, under modern methods, there's actually quite a bit of water. There's, what is it? There's a lot of water, that's plenty of water if you do things. And that nice thing is, since this is all brand new, all those things can be put in.
Well, just as long as it's enforced, because I know they've said that there's a lot of meters out there now that they're not paying attention to.
Yeah.
They will be by 2030, but these ones will be enforced.
Correct. So real quick, the top 5 things that I've heard from council and citizens that they don't want to happen. Number 1, don't use city water for irrigation. We're not proposing to do that at all, not a single drop. Number 2, don't set a precedent for other subdivisions. We're not asking for a precedent. This applies just to one. Number 3, don't bring down our home values in our neighborhood. These are not affordable, attainable, entry-level homes. These homes are going to be priced around $1 million. They're going to look great. Number 4, don't make city enforced requirements. The water company is going to do that, not the city. And number 5, ensure that any solution that is temporary remains temporary. that's exactly what we're proposing. We're willing to agree to time limits or number of house limits. So we've heard everything that people have said and we want to comply with that.
So we can't really take any action, but we can give John and Dave direction. So what would you guys like to do? Would you like to proceed with the deferral agreement option and let John and Dave work out the details and also allow them to close on their home?
I don't want to proceed on a deferral agreement for this. I want them to use secondary water only as an option, ever.
The deferral agreement is
That
they
is-
can get occupancy without secondary water until
They construct, they
They
can
can-
keep constructing
can
until, yeah, it's what it seems like the focus is, right, John?
and that's what the city
Yeah.
code says.
So what they're asking is, this is our discussion time, right? Okay, so they're saying that they want us to put up the risk while they wait for their water rights.
No,
Why don't they just wait till summer to sell their homes to come?
the first one's going to be done in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But that's not our problem.
That's not our problem, but the deferral agreement would have measures in place to prohibit using culinary water. And also like I asked, what if it's not in place in time
Or ever?
or ever, correct?
Then they have all these homes that we allowed them to build.
No, and that's the other thing is we could put a limit on how many homes can be built. And right now there are no more. There's this one and then the model home. So that's
correct.
Yeah. And John can chime in here too, as if I'm not correct or explaining it correctly.
No, those are all correct, but, you know, as was mentioned, you know, we can.
You got it? Here, I'm happy to share.
Okay. So we could also require like posting for the improvements like we normally do. So they mentioned a pump line from Pine View. We could get an engineer's estimate, require a bond posting and things so that, but I think the real big thing is that Dave and I need to talk with Pine View's rep and just make sure that, not that we don't trust Barry and Craig, but that we just want to verify that there's the same level of confidence from Pine View that there's not a holdup from getting the water to Jordan Park's lines that are in the ground already. So.
Councilmember Pulver?
That's basically what I'm waiting for. So I mean, if that's the case, if that's yes, then I would say yes, deferral until that can be done for those two houses.
So we're just putting it in the hands of staff to decide whether or not.
To proceed to see if if the deferral agreement is an option. But they need approval to go talk to Pine View
Right,
or
I-
Weaver Basin.
I trust our staff,
Yeah.
but if there's a chance, even a small chance that this never comes about, then what happens? Staff would know, I guess, and
Mhm.
So the deferral agreement will come back to you in theory at the next meeting, that we should have all those, the outline. We may even be able to convince Jeff to come if we put it as first on the agenda, so you could hear it from the horse's mouth. And I think that would allow the council to then make the final vote with the agreement in front of you or make any, suggested amendments. And if there's a council member who'd like to work on the language, I'd be more than happy to have someone to run it past so that we can think of all the little nuances. So.
Yeah. Councilmember-
I'm just going to be honest. I'm very confused by this discussion. I am not comfortable with giving any direction at this point. I was ready to come to this meeting and say, we're not considering. I don't know. I'm very confused and I'm kind of embarrassed that I'm this confused. If I'm this confused, are there other people in the audience right now that are kind of confused? So I'm kind of lacking for words right now. I don't want to consider any sort of deferral agreement, period. No matter all the explaining that just happened and that they might not be using culinary water in the short term.
Be using it.
Okay,
It's not connected.
yeah, it's not connected with culinary right now. It will be.
No. Culinary was not an option. He's already mentioned culinary is off the table. Basically what,
How are they, so,
basically what they're asking for is don't put in their yards until they get secondary.
That's where I'm at.
Correct.
Like, how do we?
Culinary water is in the houses.
Yes.
There is no secondary water connected to provide irrigation and use a single drop of irrigation in the yards, but the pipes are in the ground. So when we get it worked out with Weber Box Elder, all we have to do is make the connection. So I apologize if it's been confusing and too much stuff being discussed. There are two things that we are requesting tonight. Number one, approve staff, your staff, to work with us and get a deferral agreement in place that would come back to you to approve at a future meeting. That is exactly per the city code 11-26-8. When secondary water is not available on a temporary basis, the council can approve a deferral agreement. We're not asking you to approve it tonight. We're asking you to approve your staff to negotiate that with us and bring it back before you in the future to approve. And the second thing we're asking is for a CO on the home that's going to be done in 2 weeks. Having landscaping is not a requirement to get a CO. Our homeowners are going to, in the future, put their landscaping in after they own their home. So the CO normally in most subdivisions comes before the, not most, but in many subdivisions, CO comes before landscaping.
I have a thought. This might be a
Okay.
funny thought, but
Let's hear it.
if I were to move into a home and you cannot put your yard in, but I've got a spigot on the side of my house and I've got a dog, I might hook a hose to that and put a little bit of grass in that someone can't see. What's to stop that? That's
There's nothing to stop
But-
anybody.
culinary water using,
So this is,
or outside.
and
Yeah.
maybe John can correct me again.
They don't have the option.
A couple of years ago when we were in the big drought,
There's
as a
plenty of
council,
water.
there's a couple council members that in the room that were with me, we put this into effect with deferral agreements where we did not allow yards to be installed because we didn't have water. There was water in place, but we did not have access, or I mean, the residents didn't have water, so we used these deferral agreements to say, hold off on your yards for a couple year or a year until we have water. This is not something new that we are, or that's being proposed.
We'd be fine with that if you want to do that as well.
Yeah.
We're willing to be flexible.
But what we're looking for is do we want to give staff direction to talk to Weber, can make sure I say the right name, Weber Box Elder?
Yeah, it's
Pine View? Yeah, Pine View as we know them,
Yeah, known as Pine View, but that's, yes,
Yeah.
they're that
and
part.
work with Barry to set something up to bring back in 2 weeks.
I don't want to give that direction.
Can I don't know how to say this. I feel like we get a biased point of view hearing from a developer. I'd love to hear more of like the staff's big picture viewpoint in a separate presentation, like right now, maybe.
I recall our meeting with this guy last time, and it was not good because they wanted to use culinary water. But it sounds like we have a solution now. And the only thing we need to do to transition to the solution is to let John and whoever
Dave.
be on their side
Yep.
talk about what a proposal would be to facilitate a solution that seems reasonable to me. So that's my impression of it.
So, sorry, no, I'm happy to comment. So, the biggest point for staff to this point has been no culinary water, right? That has kind of been our goal. We've talked about several of the properties in this area who are in similar situations, and if they can all work this same solution out, that would be really great for the city. And so this is, hearing this optimism from Pineview or Weber Box Elder, and the developer is encouraging because it allows for a solution that doesn't require our culinary water system to be involved. There are obviously some weaknesses in any agreement you make, because what if it doesn't happen, right? And that's why I think we'd like the opportunity to explore that with Pineview, talk to Jeff, and just see what his level of confidence is as well. You know, when he stood up in front of the council last week, he said, "Give me time." And you know, he didn't give us a time frame, but I think he kind of, or he might have said, "I know I'll have water in 2 years," but now it sounds like they've worked out a solution that may be sooner, where it's uh, Hamlet Homes that is engaging Weber Basin, which is a different company, to provide the water, and then basically Pineview will wheel it up the hill to their pond, and now it works out. So, from a staff perspective, this is a much better option than culinary water for sure. And the ability to negotiate this to bring back to the council, really the biggest kind of sticking point, I think, is that occupancy permit. Because essentially the council's not committing to anything else until the deferral agreement is signed. And I understand the concerns with the occupancy permit, because now we're letting someone move into a house that doesn't have landscaping, which in theory has no promise of water. It may actually coincide that if the home isn't going to be constructed for 2 weeks, that the next meeting, or not constructed, but occupied, that, if the agreement's worked out on the 24th, then the home could get occupancy on the 25th, for example. If that's the level of comfort the council would like, then that's in your wheelhouse as well.
So are we saying we're not going to do anything with the occupancy permit until this is the deferral?
If the council would like that
Okay.
approach, they can.
Well, don't you need a deferral for occupancy? You can't just say.
Correct, yeah.
So you have to, if they don't have secondary water hooked up, they need a deferral or they can't occupy. So it don't matter. I guess that's the point. So that's all they're trying to do, is figure out, is what they're saying true? Dave and John go figure that out. If it is, then hey, come back with something that is ironclad that allows them to move forward on these two houses, period.
Let me
And-
make
and
it
let me-
easy for you and
Barry, let me
take,
speak. Let me
Okay.
speak.
thank you.
And I didn't just make this up tonight. I sent out an email a week ago to John, and among other people, to Weber Basin, to Humphrey, to everybody, saying, here's the critical path we got to go down. The first step of that path was what happened today with Weber Boxell approving this. The next step is the contract. I mean, there's a lot of ability to verify this. It's not like John's going to call up Jeff tomorrow and saying, Jeff, who the hell's Craig Smith? What are you talking about? Same thing with Weber Basin. They're all informed about this. It's taken a lot of work to get to this place. And all we are asking right now is let us continue that work and bring that back to you in a way that you can, like I say, we'll make it all, I think it should be verifiable. I agree. Let's make it all verifiable, and let's put teeth in it, all that kind of stuff. Let's do that.
And if it makes it easier for the council, let's take the C of O off the table right now. We don't need the C of O. The home is not sold. The model home is not finished, and we haven't even opened for sales yet. So not asking for a CO, just asking you to approve your staff to work with us, get a deferral agreement in place. We're not asking for the deferral agreement to be approved tonight because you haven't seen it yet. So we'll work it out with your staff and then come back before you to request approval.
So we can't really take formal action, but thumbs up or down to John if you want him to work on the deferral agreement with Barry and Weber. Not Weber Basin, Weber Box Elder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I should
And I
write
think we'll
stuff
have,
down.
well, next time we're back here, I think we'll have the signed contracts with Weber Basin between,
Yep.
again, they're not our contracts. These are between Weber Basin and Weber Box Elder.
Thumbs down for me.
1, 2. We got 2, 3. Okay, John. Go ahead, Chris. Councilmember Watson.
I'm trying to
Ahead.
come up with my question here. I'm looking at your slides. So slide 8.
Right here.
Yeah, it says, thank you. Developer is proposing North Ogden City thank you. The second bullet point. Culinary water be allowed to service secondary water with conditions.
That has been changed. That was when we came before you in September, and now we're proposing no culinary water service irrigation.
These are outdated. The slides are outdated.
Correct. That was a carryover from September. And since then, I mean, if you guys want to approve that, we're open to it. But we've heard loud and clear that many people are opposed to it. And so we've sort of withdrawn that
That's my
request.
question.
Yes.
That was my question. So I trust our staff, and I think it would be fine if they put the time into it. That doesn't mean that I'm promising I'm going to agree with the deferral when it comes, but I'd like to hear more from staff, whether that's later or whenever. So
Okay. All right. The staff's got direction. Do we have a council member that wants to work with staff on this, or would you like me to work with staff on this?
I'm not the right guy. I'm too confused.
I say the mayor.
All right. Okay.
I can help if needed, but
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're moving on. Item number 7. This is going to be a discussion and or action to approve ordinance 2026-04, a zoning text amendment for the North Ogden Code 11-26-8, secondary water system to consider unavailable infrastructure and deferral agreement requirements. And our presenters are Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, and I'm sorry that you have to listen to me one more time tonight. We noticed in section 1126.8 secondary water system that there is a word shall when we think there should be a word may. And the requirement here in 1126.8 states that the applicant is required to provide secondary water as a condition of approval, provided the design of the system meets public works standards and receives an approval from the engineer for the secondary water district. If secondary water is unavailable, a deferral agreement shall be entered into for future connections and culinary water used for landscaping irrigation. The land use attorney, city attorney, and the planning department sat down and discussed what this code means if you read it letter by letter of the law. And it is that the council shall enter into an agreement, but it gives no information about what that agreement is. I mean, you could enter into an agreement with them that simply says, we won't do anything. And so staff has proposed that the word shall be changed to may, and then add a second section that says, deferral agreements may require secondary water system improvements to be completed within a specified time period, bonding or escrow for future improvements, minimal turf grass areas and xeriscape provisions, deed restrictions for individual properties to include plat notes limiting gallons of water used per property, or other necessary provisions to protect the city's culinary water resources. The list isn't intended to be everything that the city council could do, but it's options, and it provides a little bit more clarity on what this section of code is recommending to do. Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item on January 21st and made a positive recommendation to the city council to pass this item. Oh, John.
And then I'd just like to add one nuance. As we were talking about this at the staff level, this little phrase is kind of the linchpin of this. If secondary water is unavailable and what that means. Our interpretation based on our understanding of city code is if it's physically unable to get there, which I believe it is able to get there through like Mountain View system, for using Jordan Park as an example. It's just the issue they're having is the availability of water rights in the system. And so, but that's not what we're here to talk about and stuff. I just want you to understand why we feel like that we need this agreement, because I think in the future we may find people who the pipes actually cannot get to them, or the pressure cannot get to them, and there's some physical constraint, and that's the way we're kind of viewing this as opposed to a water right share restraint. But the may just gives us a little more flexibility in the future.
But at the same time, I think the key thing is that we'll know this ahead of time, not at the end. So that's the key thing I think I want to make sure everybody understands, is that when we're talking about this agreement or this code, this is at the beginning of any type of development.
Yeah, and we are not allowing conditional will serve letters anymore. So either you've met all the terms of the provider, Rocky Mountain Power, Questar, or whoever, so that we know it's locked in. We're not doing conditionals anymore. And then because it was a conditional, and then we were trapped in this nuance, state code says you can only hold up development and building permits if you're missing culinary water and roads. You can't hold it up for anything else. And so that's why we had to let it be recorded and then start the building permit process. But that's why we had that second kind of clarification document that said you won't get occupancy if secondary isn't figured out. So.
Any other questions for Scott or John? Or I'd be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2026-04, the zoning text amendment for North Ogden Code 11-26-8, secondary water systems to consider unavailable infrastructure and deferral agreement requirements as presented.
So moved.
You got a motion by Councilmember Pulver. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Carney. So it'll be a roll call vote. Councilmember Carney. Oh, wait. Is there any additional discussion or questions or comments?
Everyone looks at me.
I'm looking down the line.
I guess from John's perspective,
I'm not offended.
from John's perspective, was Councilman Pulver's explanation pretty good? Basically, this is well ahead of anything that starts. The only chance we would consider a deferral is it's all put in front of us well ahead of time.
Correct. Yeah, this would, the way this is written now, it would now show up to you before a plat is approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Much better now.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Carney,
Yes.
Councilmember Neighbor,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz,
Yes.
and Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 8, discussion and or action to approve a protection strip agreement with West States Development for the Harvest Cove development, and our presenters, City Manager John Call.
Thank you, council. So this is another agreement that's allowed for under our code. This is the second or third time that we've done it in my time with the city. And what it does is it allows a developer who we require to develop a full width road. So we don't have a half road provision where they don't have to do the other side of the road on these, what we call a perimeter road, that where they're not constructing houses or businesses on the opposite side of the street from them. Is that they can create a 1 foot wide protection strip that requires the neighboring property owner, when they develop, to participate in the cost of the road and the utilities and everything like that. And so what this agreement does and what our code does is it says at the outset, we're going to say how much money everything costs, land, utilities, road, everything like that. And then we will allow them to collect interest for 10 years on that money, but then it freezes the amount. But if, as soon as someone wants to connect to it, and in this case, it's the Weber School District that would like to connect, or that will connect, then they would pay the $203,000 and some change plus the interest when they connect. I should mention that I've been in discussions with Weber School District. Travis Taylor with the developer has as well. They would, Larry Hadley, the guy, he would actually prefer to just pay for it now, but he doesn't have the board approval that he needs, and that process is too long. This is currently basically holding up the plat. And so Travis and his team wanted to go this route so they could get it locked in. I think that the school will have something figured out here in the next few months, and they'll pay their fair share and off they'll run. Two caveats are, this agreement makes it clear it's not the city's job to enforce this agreement. It's the landowner's job, the people who own that protection strip. And then it is released when the landowner gets paid, and then they basically send a document through to release the protection strip. And essentially, either it comes to the city for ownership or to the neighboring property owner, depending on how the road alignment works. So staff is recommending approval of this. We do have Travis here to participate. He's probably thankful that his development is approved and rolling, and it's not long meetings, but he is here to answer questions if you have any for him as well.
Councilmember Pulver.
So I do have, well, not a question, maybe a statement. is that, is this strip on the other side of the sidewalk?
Yes, so it's
So
the.
he knows he has to shovel that, saying?
No, it's a fair thing. So in our ordinance,
Yeah.
the people who own the ground
We have a small issue in our
adjacent
neighborhood. Anyway.
to the sidewalk have to shovel it. So in this scenario, West States would be responsible for the sidewalk until the school developed or the school paid them out and closed the deal out. So
That was more rhetorical, but yeah. it's
and
just-
landscaping and everything. So the park strip between the sidewalk, there's some responsibility there with this protection strip.
But
that-
hopefully it's just a couple months, not 10 years.
yeah, I think Weaver School District. I mean I don't know if they've given the school a name yet, but down there near Mud Creek Basin on south of 1700 on the southwest side of town, that's in their 5-year plan to construct, and I think their goal is to have it operational by 2030 or 2029. I can't remember. So yeah, but Travis is here. He waited this whole time, so you should maybe at least ask him one question.
Bless you for waiting.
Councilmember Watson? Oh. Sorry, I saw your hand raised.
Oh.
She just asked if the whole road was developed.
Oh, yeah.
That part at the
Okay.
beginning.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or discussion? Be looking for a motion to approve the protection strip agreement with West States Development for the Harvest Cove development. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Neighbor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dowpaz. Is there any other discussion? All right, roll call vote. Councilmember Carney?
Yes.
Councilmember Neighbor?
Yes.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz?
Yes.
And Councilmember Pulver?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. And now we'll be going back to public comments. This is again your chance to come and make up to the microphone, state your name, whether you're resident North Ogden, try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Now's your time to present.
I'm still Brian Bartholomew, still a member of North Ogden. Just quick follow-up. I told Barry congratulations. It sounds like he did go out and secure some water rights. Something we all need to be aware of, not just council, but citizens as well. The state is really cracking down on water conservation. That 0.38 acre feet of water that they talked about, just so you know, is about 125,000 gallons. My lot is a 0.4 acre lot, and I am currently allotted 325,000 gallons. So the Jordan Park lots are similar in size, a little bit smaller, but they're going to be giving about 1/3 of the water. So what that means is when citizens are putting in their lawns and yards according to the codes of North Ogden City, they've got to factor that in, and nobody understands that. I'm barely getting my head wrapped around that. So the point is there'll be less water allotted to them. Also, in down water years or dry water years, which we are obviously expecting this year, the allotment can be even reduced even farther. So on the bad years, instead of me getting 325,000 gallons, I got 135,000 gallons. So again, you make your landscape plans based on what you think you're getting, and people don't understand how far gallons go, something to be considered. So I would say, John, with the staff, something to be thinking about. I'm welcome to be involved in those conversations as best I can if you want. But again, I think the other big thing is make sure that Jordan Park gets enough water shares. Those shares they're getting from Weber Basin are kind of different. So make sure they have enough. Don't just get a couple of water shares to cover the houses that they have built. They've got to have enough for the whole development. And really that's going to involve Jeff Humphreys from Pineview more than anybody, because the Mountain View system that I am on, that the Cove is on, is in the process of being switched over to Pineview. And so Jeff will be the one to contact with that. And he knows this more than anybody. But again, make sure that you understand it enough to make sure they get enough water.
So Pine View's or Mountain View's going away?
No.
Oh.
The North Ogden system is going to be transferred to Pineview. It's in the works. So Mountain View is a separate irrigation company similar to Pineview. They operate primarily out in far west, Plain City, and the flatlands. They have one island, we call it, which is the Cove, and it's not ideal for Mountain View's main setup. So they're looking to transfer that off. And like I said, it's much more complicated than what I am explaining and what the attorney was explaining. But again, just make sure they have enough water. So, but again, I think it's a good plan what he has going where he's gone to get some water share. So anyway, call me. You guys have my number. Call me if you have any questions. And like I said, John, I'm more than willing to come to those meetings if it would help. So thank you.
Good info. Thank you.
I am also still myself. I am Mindy Albee from North Ogden. I appreciate your work tonight and the work that you've put in to understand and listen to and read through emails and conversations with the neighbors. I can't tell you how many neighbors that I have gotten feedback from that are excited when you respond to what they sent you, and they feel engaged and they feel respected and they feel heard. So thank you for that. We look forward to working with you on a development agreement for the Matlock property. And I want to stress that the neighbors need to be third-party beneficiaries to that. We hope that the city council will direct staff to stay in regular contact with the neighbors and make sure that the neighbors get as much up-to-date information as possible. It's really hard for the neighbors to pivot and understand revisions when they are last minute. So just know that we're eager and that we want to be part of the conversation and we want to love the project as much as the developer does. Thank you so much.
So I'm Stephanie Goodrich. I live in North Ogden. I live in North Ogden Cove, same with Brian. I did submit an email on some feedback on this, and I appreciate the three of you that definitely got back to me. So, and I'd heard similar feedback from other neighbors as well. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I feel better, I think, leaving tonight knowing that at least there's a walk away to look at a deferral agreement and that really decisions aren't being made. It's still get something in place and we can still have a discussion and review it, make sure that folks are comfortable with that. It's so complicated that I have a personal concern that if I'm a buyer going into Jordan Park, if I'm that first house that gets sold here or available to be sold in a couple of weeks, how clear is it going to be to those potential buyers that this is the situation that they're walking into? I don't know if that's in the deferral agreement, what can be put out there to protect those buyers, such that somehow this does not circle back to where this gets into a lawsuit that somehow the city gets dragged into. All for the fact that this same situation, it's been brought up multiple times, this is an issue that exists purely because of this builder, this developer has failed to do their due diligence to begin with. So I still feel like they've been given an out without really making it blatantly clear that this is their issue. This is not their first subdivision. They should have known these sorts of issues, but we've got the deferral agreement that will get worked. Please consider protecting the buyer that may be in, if it's just for those first two houses. So that's what I ask of you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Those closed public comments, and now we'll move on to mayor's and staff comments. I will start with staff. Ryan? Dave? Scott? He's hiding in the back. Chief? John?
Just you probably saw it on Facebook, but the Polar Plunge event was successful this year. I apologize that we didn't make sure you got an invite so you knew it was happening, but we are looking at ways to find someone who can take on that assignment to shovel everything out that you all need to be aware of that isn't decision making, that's the fun stuff. So next year we'll get you in the water, all of you. So
It's okay.
This year would have been the year to jump in.
yeah, that's true. It's warmer this year than in the past.
Warm
so.
bath.
But that's it, Mayor.
Do we have any staff or council comments? Councilmember?
I wanted to say one thing. All the emails that we got, I think, I don't want to speak for all of us, but that's one of the things I've been doing all day long is rereading the emails. I will see that someone else up here has responded. And so I don't want to respond and say the same thing. Thank you for your comments. We'll bring them up. But know that they are being read by all of us and over and over and over. So I just maybe didn't respond to all of them, but I did read all of them at least twice. So, but thank you for taking the time to write the emails. It's a lot of good info.
Same. But I also had one other thing, and I know it's getting I don't know. I'm going to say this. Signs are getting ridiculous. I don't know what else to do. I think if I just don't know if is it vigilanteism if I start removing them from places I'm idling next to, just for example.
I'll help.
It's out of control. It's not in compliance. We look worse than Ogden, which I don't quite understand, but just something to think about. And if you want to deputize me, that's fine.
So the official process, as I remember, if you see a sign that's out of compliance, call non-emergency.
I'd be doing it every 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, but it is an official avenue. Am I correct, John? If you see a sign ordinance issue, there's a sign plopped on a pole that shouldn't be there.
That's what we've instructed people so that we don't end up with the threats or the accusations of people stealing stuff. I do know in the political season, I'm the only one who removes political signs when we get complaints, just so that people don't get in trouble. They at least know the city attorney was the one who made the judgment call. So,
Chief would like another CSO officer to help with that. So.
That was it. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good rant.
If I could just respond to the comments that were made, I've always wished that there was a way that you could sign up some automated system that didn't take any staff time, to where you could say, I'm interested in this agenda item, and every time it comes to any meeting that I would be notified. I've always wished that that existed, and as far as I know, it doesn't. So you have to just kind of always be watching the agendas, and this is what I did before I was in council, because there were certain things that I wanted to follow every single bit and never miss a moment. And you just kind of have to watch the agendas. So that's just a tip, heads up. I wish it were different.
In regards to the two comments at the end, Brian, the city will need to adopt a water conservation code.
Yeah, that's what.
Or update a water conservation code, as was Jeff mentioned last week. So we will work on that but we'll have to work on the deferral agreement first. And then Stephanie, I took your notes. We'll add that into the deferral agreement, that make sure the buyers are aware. And that's all I got. If there's nothing else, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Councilmember